Can we all rise, please? Commissioner Aerosmith, would you please introduce the invocation?
Sure. It's my pleasure today to have Reverend Jim Page. He's from Calvary Nazarene Church here in Apopka. It's good to have you with us.
All right, thank you. Let's pray together. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity and privilege we have to be here today in this council meeting. We are reminded that in most places, really most places in this world, that they don't have a right to freely express themselves, even to assemble together. We are reminded that these freedoms are not free. We thank you for those who have sacrificed and continue to sacrifice today, that we could be free. We pray, Lord, for those in the federal and state government. We pray for guidance and wisdom on their part. And then, Lord, we thank you for this city, the city of Apopka, the lifestyle that we all enjoy. We thank you for all the employees of this great city who do their best to help make Apopka the greatest place to live in Central Florida. We thank you for our mayor and city council who set the tone for our city. We ask you to give them wisdom and courage to do what is best for all of those in Apopka. Remind us today that we are all part of your family and this community. Help us to and really respect and understand others' viewpoints. Remind us at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Page. On August 7th, 1782, General George Washington established the original Purple Heart, then known as the Badge of Military Merit, to honor soldiers for their meritorious actions. The honor was bestowed upon only 3 soldiers during the Revolutionary War, and although not abolished, the award was not officially proposed again until after World War I. The Purple Heart was reinstated on February 22, 1932, the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. And since its reinstatement, nearly 2 million Purple Hearts have been awarded to American servicemen and women for their injuries received in service to our great nation. And so as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance today, please let us remember the sacrifice and bravery of the men and women in our armed forces. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for our first meeting in August. We wanted to let you know that if you wish to appear before the City Council today, please submit a notice of intent to speak to our City Clerk. We generally allow during the public comment period a 4-minute window for you to speak, and we have a pretty full agenda today, and so there are going to be plenty of opportunities for people to speak, but please keep in mind that 4-minute window. We've got a couple of employee presentations, but first, because of our time schedule that Representative Nelson is under, I'd like to welcome back former City Commissioner Kathy Till, who's now with the Florida League of Cities, who would like to make a special presentation to Representative Brian Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. It's great to be back in Apopka. Although I still live here, it's great to be in these wonderful chambers again among so many friends and colleagues. I'm here today to recognize State Representative Brian Nelson. So, Representative, if you'd like to join me up here as I say a few words. Each year after session, the Florida League of Cities takes the opportunity to look back on the service of our legislature during session, not only in that year, but in sessions past. And we'd like to recognize those individuals that have really sort of stood out in our minds as individuals that have recognized and appreciated the challenges and the opportunities that the cities within their districts are facing and have really been champions in Tallahassee on behalf of those cities. So today I'm here to recognize Representative Nelson for that purpose. And I'd like to share with you a couple of comments, so hopefully you will indulge me for just a moment, about why he was chosen to receive this award today. As you know, Representative Nelson is ending his term in Tallahassee, although he gets one more shot at it starting tomorrow, I think. could go out with a bang. Okay. I'll let you
Like Hotel-
elaborate on that, Representative.
It's like Hotel California, Brian.
You're that right. But during his time in Tallahassee, the representative never forgot where he came from. And he never forgot the people that he represented. He has always had a very open-door policy, not only to myself and my colleagues at the League of Cities, but to any of his constituents that have wanted to sit down and talk with him about issues affecting their community and their lives. And during that 8 years, he's had to make some very difficult decisions. He's had to make some hard choices, and he has had to make some unpopular votes. But he did that because he remembered where he came from, and he supported his local governments during that time. I was speaking with a constituent a few days ago when I was talking about being able to present this award to the representative, and this constituent said, well, in your comments, would you please share with everybody how accessible the representative has always been back in the district. He doesn't run and hide, and he doesn't disappear on the weekends. He's always here, as you know. He's at many events, and he's always willing to talk and listen to his constituents. And for that reason, on behalf of the Florida League of Cities, I would like to present State Representative Brian Nelson with our Legislative Appreciation Award. And I would like to read what the plaque says, and then, Representative, I will turn it over to you for any comments. The Florida League of Cities presents its 2014 Legislative Appreciation Award to Representative Brian Nelson in recognition of his unwavering legislative commitment, dedication, and service to Florida's municipalities. Representative, thank you for your service and congratulations.
Thank Kathy. Till, thank you so much for what an honor. 8 years in Tallahassee goes by fast, and so one of the first bills that we had to work on is the red light cameras, which Apopka's had for a bunch of years. And we passed the bill 8 years ago and thought, well, it's at the time I think it was the right bill, but as time goes along, we said, well, maybe we need to tweak the bill. So as we went along in the 8 years, we said, okay, the right terminal reds, we need to look at how do we adjust those so that we take safety into full concern, but that the tickets just for revenue's sake are not as important. So we looked at that issue for 8 years, and we're able to, I think, come up with some alternatives and be able to make that, I think, something that we can all be proud of. Born and raised right here in Apopka, and couldn't think of anywhere I'd rather represent than Apopka. Unfortunately, I think in the last 2 years, the redistricting, and gosh knows I got to go back up for a congressional redistricting, but when they split Apopka up, I was not happy at all. I like to have the community together. All of Apopka, we're one community, and we will stay one community. And so I will make you this commitment when the next redistricting comes in 10 years, or now it's down to 6, that we will put Apopka back together as a district, representing our state. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for getting me up first. Appreciate your indulgence. I've got another commitment with the governor talking about the environmental agenda for next year, and so thank you all for coming. Thanks for this award, Kathy. Thank you all for having me.
Thanks, Brian. Well, before Brian leaves, I just want to add my 2 cents in. In my relatively brief time in public service, I will say that I've always found Brian to be extremely accessible and more importantly, willing to serve as a mentor to newly elected officials. And there really is, there's a great calling for that in Tallahassee. And so thank you, Brian, for everything that you've done for the city of Apopka and for myself in particular. Thanks very much.
And for the veterans. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's give him another round of applause as he walks out. All right, we're next going to go to our employee recognitions, and the first one on our agenda is Samuel Anderson. Okay. Samuel is celebrating his 5-year service award with the City of Apopka. Next on the docket is Jose Diaz. Okay. All right. We'll make sure that he gets that pin. Next on the docket is Charles White. Well, we have some hard-working police officers here at the City of Apopka, don't we? All right. Next is Joyce Boland from Public Services. She's not here. All right. Everybody felt like it was more important to work than to come get recognized. How about Charles Shaw? All right.
There he is.
Come on up. Charles is celebrating his 20-year service award with the City of Apopka. Charles began working for the city on July 18th, 1994 as a Utility Service Worker 1. He transferred to Utility Billing, and his title changed to Meter Reader on March 8th, 1995. Then on July 16th, 2007, Charles transferred to Water Distribution Maintenance as a Utility Service Worker 2, which is his current position. Congratulations, Charles.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Michael McLaughlin. All right. Michael is celebrating his 30 years with the City of Apopka. Michael started working for the city as a laborer on July 23rd, 1984 for sanitation. On March 20th, 1987, he was promoted to meter reader for the water department. Michael transferred to finance and utility billing, and his title changed to cashier customer service clerk on August 19th, 1996, which is his current position. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Pretty impressive, huh? 30 years.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
How can you get mad paying your water bill when you're greeted by like that? Right? All right. So we're going to go to presentations on the agenda, and our first presentation is by Linda Lorendo with the Apopka Charter Review Committee.
Linda Lorendo, 1785 Nordic Court, Apopka. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. It's my pleasure to give you a final report. You have a written report in your packet, but I want to elaborate on some of the things that are in the packet. Committee was formed as a committee of the whole with the previous mayor and council a while back. Each commissioner recommended 2 members, mayor 3, and those 11 people were appointed as the initial members of the Apopka Charter Review Committee. Our charge was 3 items. When we initially went in the Committee of the Whole through the charter, there were about 5 items that needed to be addressed. We were charged with taking up 3 items. We were charged with going out and speaking to the citizens and finding out what's on their mind and coming and making non-binding recommendations to council. First, should the number of commissioner seats be increased? Second, should the positions of mayor and commissioner have term limits? And 3, should the members of council be elected and or serve in districts? Our initial meeting, you can see what we went through, how just kind of organizing, talking about parliamentary law, sunshine law, meeting each other, and taking input from the public. However, unfortunately, nobody from the public was present. That was very disappointing to us because we had a room full of people over at the VFW. So we proceeded to talk about the number of seats. This is a sampling of some of the comments that came from both the members of the committee as well as the members of the public that were present. I think it's important to note that 80,000 by 2020, it sounds so far off, doesn't it? It's 6 years. We have room for growth, so why not start now? A lot of people thought, well, we really don't need more, but then, well, we have room, so why not start now? It could take 4 years. We'd have to have a ballot initiative, and citizens would have to vote on whether to change the charter from 4 to 6 seats. Then we would have to have a transition to elect 2 new people, in addition to the regular cycle, one of whom would serve 2 years, the other 4 years. So it would take 4 years at least from now to transition into 2 additional seats. And one of the biggest things was that diversity of thought would be key. We would have a larger diversity of thought. There was a motion to recommend the addition of 2 seats, and that motion carried 7-2. We then took up term limits, and you can see some of the comments that came from the committee and from the public. Suggestions ranged from anywhere from 8 to 16 years, the number of years that could be if we decided to go with term limits. But in the final analysis, the motion was made not to have term limits in Apopka, and that motion carried 7-0. We then took up the most complex issue, which was districting. Most people felt that all representatives should be accountable to everyone. That the last 2 occurrences of congressional districting were extremely difficult, and look what we're going through now. Representative Nelson's going to have his hands full. And today, with advanced communication, it's much easier to get a hold of people than it used to be. And we're still small enough now. It's a complex issue. How many districts would we have? Would commissioners be elected at large or in districts? Would they serve at large or in districts, or a combination? You can see all the difficult issues that we would have to answer should we decide that districting would work. In addition, since a commissioner would represent significantly fewer people in a districting scenario, then how would the pay be adjusted? The committee would not draw the districts. Government would have to draw the districts, and in this case, government, it's the city of Apopka. Each district would have to be balanced to the number by number and ethnically. So it is no easy task. So it's cumbersome and expensive. In the final analysis, a motion was made that the city of Apopka continue the current practice that commissioners serve at large and not in districts. That motion carried 7-0. There were other recommendations that came, and although that was not our charge, we felt that we would like you to know that there were other things that came both from the floor and the committee. One was to allow qualifying by petition, which is not at present allowed in our city, and also to establish a charter review committee on a regular basis to review and recommend changes. From any time from every 4 years or 10 years, the county does it every 4 years, so that would be something to consider. I want to thank everyone who served. The names of all the members that were appointed, whether they served or not, are on the list. Our attorney, Bill McLeod, our administrative committee liaison, B. Frankie, Ms. Goebel, our city clerk, who was our most esteemed recorder. It was interesting because we had tables in the front, and we moved all the microphones forward so we could try to pick everything up and get it recorded. But especially right here, this is the big thing, for all of the public who cared enough to come to the meetings and let their opinions be known, because without them, we would probably not have necessarily made the same recommendations that we did. Our committee adjourned sine die on June 26th, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Linda. Any questions by the council?
Where you said that the vote was 7-0, was that done at the last meeting? Because the committees were 11 members.
The committee was 11 members, which meant a quorum would be 6. And so we did have a quorum at every meeting. It takes a majority of the members present to pass a motion. And so everyone has to vote. There are no abstinences. So what that meant is those 2 votes that were 7-0, there were 7 people present, all voted in favor of the motion, no one voted opposed.
Okay.
Is that cleared up?
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by the council? Linda, do you have any opinion or sense of when we should start like a new charter review process, or any sense of what we should do from this point?
I'll be happy to make a personal recommendation to you.
Sure.
Okay. Remember that this is a non-binding recommendation to council.
Right.
If council wishes to act on what we did and likes the idea of 2 more seats, then my suggestion would be to start getting that out so that it could be on the ballot next year. 16, in the next cycle. If there are any other things that have come up with regard to the charter, because if you're going to add 2 more seats, you need to review the transition schedule. There's a transition schedule in the existing charter for the last time that was done.
Right.
I kind of like the idea of 4 years. And the other thing I liked, or at least 10, maybe our city doesn't need it every 4 years because Orange County's charter is relatively huge. But the thing that I liked was the fact that 2010 was the census. And so the Charter Review Committee was convened in February of 11. So the results were just starting to come in. So as the committee went, or as the commission, it was a commission, as the commission went through its work, it was about 18 or 19 months long, then we could take the brand new data to make informed decisions.
Okay.
So, again, that's something that would be a great discussion, perhaps some public input. There might be other people that have different ideas.
I think for the moment, we'll just take this as a report submitted by the committee.
Absolutely.
And we'll schedule a future discussion about the committee's recommendation
Good idea.
and what we would like to do going forward. Does that
Thank
sound
you very
okay?
much.
Does that sound reasonable? Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next on our presentations agenda is a presentation of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report by Cecil Schumacher, Schumacher, Johnson, and Ross, the accountant for the city of Apopka. Welcome, Cecil.
Thank you, Mayor Kilsheimer. I'm Cecil Shoemaker from the firm of Shoemaker, Johnson & Ross in Leesburg, Florida. And I'm here to present the comprehensive annual financial report of the city of Apopka for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2013. We have confirmed balances, we've tested transactions, we've tested subsequent transactions, and we've given our independent auditor's report, which is an unqualified report, which means that there are no material misstatements in the financial statements that we're presenting to you. In addition to our examination, this report is also presented to the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. It's reviewed by a special review committee and also by the staff of the GFOA. I personally am also on the special review committee, and I judge financial statements from other cities. It's also looked at by the State of Florida Auditor General, the State Department of Banking and Finance, by the Police and Fire Retirement Departments in Tallahassee, and we as a firm are required to go through a peer review every 3 years by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which go through our records. My partner and I, we have 62 years of experience as CPAs, and 60 years of auditing local governments. Just to give you an idea of the vetting of this financial report and our experience that we've provided to you. You have a number of funds in the city, and these funds, if you were, I guess, a business person or aware of looking at business financial statements, each fund you might look at is a separate company, and then you combine or consolidate all of these funds together to look at the city overall. The city overall has $276 million in assets. These are all your equipment, cash, accounts receivable, and other assets that the city has. We have been your auditors for 30 years, and we've always appreciated the opportunity to be your auditors. It's been very appreciated by us. Mayor, I'm not sure how much detail you want me to go into because you've got quite an agenda here. And these are just
all right.
looking at a lot of numbers.
At this point, if you feel like you've concluded your presentation, we'll open it up to the council. If council has any questions about the comprehensive annual report, aka the CAFR.
Mayor, we'd be happy to meet with any individual member of the council if they have specific questions at any point in time.
Okay. All right.
I will say it's very thorough. I've read it from cover to cover. It's very easy to read.
Well, we appreciate working with your staff in finance and budgeting. We feel like they do a great job for you. We appreciate what all the departments do here.
All right.
As the results of what all the departments do that shows up in the finance department, that puts all the records together. But what happens is out here somewhere in the police department, fire department, public works, etc., that flows through to the finance. So I applaud all of the departments and the employees of the city. Everything we've seen, they do a fantastic job for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that any member would like to pull off and discuss?
Yeah,
I'd like to discuss number 7.
Number 5, let's go separately on that.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Aerosmith has asked that we vote separately on agenda item number 5. So we'll work with that. And Commissioner Dean, you'd like to discuss?
Yes.
Number 7.
It's not a discussion, it's a question.
Okay.
So to speak. I would like to remember the couple of meetings ago I asked about minorities.
Yes, sir.
Getting on and my question is, what are the policies and the goals for minority contractors to get some of the contracts that we are letting out? Are we working on any kind of project to get these minorities on board with some of this contract?
Well, I remember the request, right. And I remember that we did say that we were going to move forward with investigating how we amend our policies to incorporate minority hiring goals in our future bids. If you've been following the news, we've had a few things interrupt our process. So your request is in good standing, yeah. And I promise we'll get to it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Can we also pull number 6?
Okay. We'll discuss number 6 separately then. All right. So on the consent agenda, we're going to consider items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with those items?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Aerosmith, second by Commissioner Ruth. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, so let's move to item number 5. And item number 5, do you want to?
I'm just going to abstain from voting.
Okay.
I'm a client of the bank, and I just want to make that a separate issue. So.
Okay. And, which will require filing all the required paperwork.
Sure.
Right? Okay. So is there a motion to approve number 5, item number 5 on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Dean. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ruth. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Or should we do it? We should do a roll call vote, right? Okay. Commissioner Ruth? Aye or nay?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Velasquez?
Aye.
Commissioner Dean?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, so the vote is 4-0 with Commissioner Aerosmith abstaining. Okay, item number 6 on the consent agenda. Commissioner Ruth.
I just had a couple of questions. I think, I was looking at the property appraisers Monday night. There's nothing really that I see there that just stands out. I know it's over by the police department. On the property appraiser, it's assessed value. Do we know what that is?
We purchase property, we don't go by the property appraiser's assessed values, because in most cases, those are less than the values. We have to have an appraisal done, and this property was appraised and came in at less than the appraised value.
Okay, do we,
Yes, sir. Commissioner Ruth.
can I ask then, what is the use of the property, or do we know what we're going to use it for?
It's the last assemblage property in the block adjacent to the police department, so we don't have any specific requirements for it right now, but it will be used in the future for expansion, et cetera, for public safety.
Well, the only reason I ask these questions, and I'm not trying to be cumbersome, but we bought both pieces of property on either side, and we paid $30,000, roughly somewhere around there. The numbers look, but being a forward-thinking person, if that property was sandwiched between the two properties that we have, then the $19,000 that we're paying for, although it looks like it's a good deal, 9 months ago, it was bought for the taxes owed on the property. They paid $4,900 for it. And what I'm just trying to be forward thinking in the future for stuff like that. If we have intentions of buying property, it would have been a great time to buy it 9 months ago. We may have paid $5,000, or maybe we could negotiate a different price than what we're paying for it, knowing what the property was bought for, now that we know that it was paid $4,500 for the property. I'm just trying to get a grasp on, I know how to look this stuff up, and there's a 380% profit markup on that. We're just buying property.
Well, I think just in general, from a general philosophical perspective, the city is trying to assemble what parcels it can in the downtown business district, so that when redevelopment begins, we'll have greater control over how it's redeveloped and who gets to redevelop it, rather than having parcels go willy-nilly or hodgepodge in the way we've seen in other communities. So I think that's the general philosophical perspective.
I'm definitely not against the purchase.
Okay.
I'm just being thoughtful of trying to be a good steward of the people's money, and when we're paying 300% more for something.
So the general direction to the staff is drive as hard a bargain as we can.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing what they paid for it.
Okay. All right.
Especially if we are forward thinking and we know that we're going to want that, because it's an ideal fit for the police department. That's the reason I think it's a great fit. I just want to be a good steward of the people's money.
Great.
I guess the other side of the coin is we're getting it for 30% less than the property on either side. This is true.
Okay. All right, any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve item number 6 on the consent agenda? Is there a motion?
I didn't do a lot of research on it, but I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Aerosmith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dean. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next item on the agenda is ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 2372. We're going to look at this on first reading. And is there a lead-in on this one?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon,
Welcome,
Mayor
David.
and Commission. I'm David Moon, Plan Manager with the Community Development Department. The case before you is a request from a property owner named Apopka Clear Lake Investments, represented by Ken Stoltenberg. They are requesting an amendment to the future land use designation on the property, 9.47 acres designated residential low density, and 5.29 acres designated agriculture to residential medium density. Residential medium density allows up to 10 units per acre. The location of the property is east of State Road 429, south of Peterson Road, and north of Lust Road, as shown on, here we go, as shown on the map. .429 is to the east, Lust to the south, and Binion Road is over to the east. The total property is 94.76 acres. Both the Planning Commission and the Development Review Committee reviewed this application and found it to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend the change of the medium density land use, change to the medium density land use designation. By state law, a large-scale land use amendment, which is a property involving 10 acres or more, is processed through a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. In such a case, the City Council, if it decides to proceed with this application, agrees to transmit the ordinance to the Department of Economic Opportunity at the state, as well as other state agencies for review. The state agencies reviews the application for consistency with state policies, and within 30 to 45 days sends comments back to the city. The city then, upon receipt of those comments, has 180 days to hold a final hearing. Planning Commission and Development Review Committee have recommended transmittal of this land use amendment based on consistency with the character of the surrounding area. The lands to the north of the property are zoned or have a future land use designation primarily for industrial commercial uses south of 441 from the Coca-Cola Mid-Florida property southward down to Peterson Avenue. To the northwest of the property, along Hermit Smith Road area, the predominant land use and zoning assigned to the property is industrial. Single-family residential is located on the east side of the area, on the west of Binion Road. This development application also includes a zoning request for PUD, which will be presented to City Council after the state comments are returned for the future land use application. That zoning application will also include property to the east that is currently designated low-density residential. The intent of the applicant, and they are in attendance this afternoon, is to develop a mixed-use residential planned unit development. So the position of DRC and the Planning Commission is to transmit this application to the state for the 94 acres. Upon receipt of the state comments, to hold the final hearing, at which time both the planned unit development master plan and the final hearing for the medium density land use designation will be heard by the City Council. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll address any questions that you may have.
Any questions by the council?
You may have covered it, but the road that they're going to put leading out, going to the north, going up to Peterson Road,
Yes, sir.
That's going to be to city standards, I assume.
Correct.
Okay. Are they going to complete it out Peterson and out to King? Is that all under, is that all improved roadways also? Is that at this point? It's been a while since I've been on.
There's minor right-of-way issues that need to be addressed.
I'm sorry?
Minor right-of-way issues that need to be addressed at the corner of Peterson.
Right.
Right now, the pavement is actually located, or a portion of the pavement, on private property. There's likely a corner clip that will have to be resolved. The road pavement is substandard width. So from the northern property line up to West Orange, the developer will have to establish a development agreement with the city regarding how a road will occur from the north side of the property up to West Orange.
Okay, yeah.
That road will
my
have to meet city standards.
Was that we do have a city that meets city standards all the way from the property up to West Orange. It's going to be a lot of traffic in and out of there, and I'm assuming people would much rather go that way than coming out to Binion and going through the curves and all that, unless they're going south. But just so that's part of in the development agreement.
Well, one of the reasons for that northern roadway is that all traffic would have to depart to the south on Lust Road and then head up north on Binion if they weren't headed to the south. This will distribute the trips, which will have a minimal impact on the area of Binion that is curved.
Sure. Just so we have it all the way out to West Orange Avenue. That's the key.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
One question.
Commissioner Velasquez.
The school's capacity report, do we know what school they're going to be zoned for when they start to build this community there?
This property is zoned to the Apopka Elementary School, the Wolf Lake Middle School, and the Apopka High School attendance zones. Prior to the final hearing for the land use amendment, the applicant will have to obtain a capacity enhancement agreement with the school board to identify their impacts on those three schools.
Okay.
So they will have to address that before that final hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? So, David, roughly how far away is this property from our small area study area?
2 miles.
2 miles? Okay. So, in the vicinity, but not close enough to be included.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to open this up for a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance number 2372? Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Tom Sullivan with the Gray Robinson Law Firm on behalf of Apopka Clear Lake Investments on this request, and appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate David's comments and his presentation and the recommendation for approval from staff as well as that of the Planning Commission. We did, Mayor, if you would indulge us, prepare kind of a short PowerPoint presentation I'd just like to walk through to give you a little bit of a feel for...
Our IT director is riding to the rescue as we speak.
This is in much better hands with him than it is with me, I can assure you that. But we did, while he's helping us with that, I did want to just recognize a couple of the comments that I already did hear. I know Commissioner Aerosmith mentioned the road. That is something we're definitely mindful of. I just did want to say that on the record. I know that that's been something that David noted in his report in terms of something that staff was only comfortable making the recommendation if we dealt with that. So we're on top of that. We're working on the we'll start working on the developers agreement hopefully after we get this transmitted today. So I just did want to acknowledge that on the record. Just a couple other basic points, and try not to be repetitive of what David said, but we're really kind of at the first step today. Just trying to get this transmitted to the state. We'll be back in front of you all a number of times for the adoption hearings, the PUD zoning. So we'll we're just looking to try to get past this first step today, and we'll be engaged with the city considerably more going forward. The presentation that we've got here, just to tell you kind of what it is and isn't, it's really just intended to give you a feel for the quality of the project that we're talking about doing here, that we're excited about doing. I have to tell you that Ken and his team with Apopka Clear Lake are, as I said, really excited about it. We think this is a great fit for the area and for the city overall, and I'll talk a little bit about why that's the case. But I think actually just to point out a couple portions of the staff report before we show you the PowerPoint. Page 2 of the report, I think, actually does a great job of describing what the project is, what the vision is, and it's a residential community with a mix of single-family homes, apartments, and townhomes with residential amenities that are really strong here. The amenity package is really strong. It includes a bike trail to the Lake Apopka Loop Trail, which we're excited about. A community resort-style clubhouse, swimming pools, parks, significant open space, some features like that I'll show you in a minute. When you look at the location of the site, and this is covered also on page 4 of the report, just under the land use compatibility section. As David mentioned, we've got industrial and warehouse uses to the north. To the west, we've got State Road 429, which I think is really a significant factor here. And you have single-family uses to the south and to the east. So one of the things I wanted to point out here, I think this property was previously approved by the council in 2006 as the Binion Lake Estates PUD. I think that included about 234 single-family homes. And that was before the 429 came through the area, which we think really kind of changed. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Perfect. Thanks so much. That really kind of changed what the highest and best use of this property really is when that occurred. So as you can see here, let me just try to briefly kind of walk through this if I could. And I know we just had this map up here before. You might notice that the easternmost portion of the property is part of our PUD, but it's not part of this land use change request because that easternmost portion, which is about 30 acres, it's called the long property. They're kind of part of our part of our group here, but there's no changes that are being proposed to that. It's already entitled as low density residential for single family. We're not proposing to make any changes with that, and I think that's important for a couple reasons. When we went to the Planning Commission meeting, there were some folks that came and spoke from Clear Lake Estates, and I think that was certainly some questions that they had is, well, what's going to be immediately adjacent to us from this project, and it's going to be single-family homes. So I think that's important to say. We're very mindful of proper transitioning within the site, and I did want to point that out, that we've got single-family homes next to single-family homes on that on that eastern border, which I think is important. So, in fact, I did want to say the only change that we're actually going to propose to that when we get to the zoning stage is I think there were 5-foot side yard setbacks that were approved back in 2006 for that project, and we're going to try to increase that to 7.5, which I think is a little bit more consistent with some of the newer successful communities that you see. So, like I said, let me mention one other thing related to the input we got from the Clear Lake folks. I did want to say that we would be happy to host a neighborhood meeting or meet with those folks sometime before we come back to the commission or to the council, for our adoption hearings. We'd be happy to do that and just go through some of the details. And actually, there's one thing I did want to mention towards the end, that one of the things that we could be in a position to chat with them about if they'd be interested in it. But if you look at this, let me try to go through these slides fairly quickly at this point. This is what we call parcel. If you look to the easternmost portion here is the single family. That's the long parcel that we were talking about. This shows you kind of a general layout there. No changes that are being proposed to the use. As I've been talking about transitioning, so if you start kind of on the easternmost side, the northeastern side there, we've got single family. As you transition west, the next piece is townhomes. And then as you go farther west, right next to the 429, we've got apartments. Then as you go south, we've got another townhome pod. As you go farther south, you can kind of see the ball fields that are on that parcel. We've got a whole amenity package, recreational area there. And then the southernmost piece is what we're calling flex space, which we'll talk about in a little bit more. But I did want to this is a good slide that kind of orients you to that transitioning that I was talking about, which, as I said, we did put a lot of thought behind that. So here's, like I say, this is just intended to give you a feel for some of the quality, some of the landscaping signage features that we would envision here, we would incorporate into later approvals. The public space features here are very strong. There's bike trails throughout the community. There's a lot of amenities that we're proposing. This I've already really kind of covered in the previous slide in terms of the transitioning, but that shows you maybe a little bit more where the delineations are of those uses. This is the actual single family portion that, as we said, we're not proposing any changes other than increasing those side setbacks, and that's really part of the PUD, but not part of the land use change, if that makes sense to the council. This is the type of residential product we would envision there. But again, this is just, again, to give you kind of a feel for the quality more than anything. Some of the community assets, again, you can kind of see the focus on the amenities here and the trail system. This is the first pod that's kind of west of the single family, which I mentioned is a townhome grouping. And you can see some of the details there that are really more appropriate really for the PUD stage, but we wanted to just give you a feel because we have gotten fairly far down the path with these concepts. This gives you another sort of visual image on what that townhome product would look like. Then you get, as I said, this is kind of the piece to the west that's adjacent to the 429. This is where we would have some of the apartments. And I did want to talk, just if I could for a second, a couple of reasons why we're really excited about targeting a particular type of multifamily use here. And when I talk about these apartments, by the way, I'm talking about kind of a luxury, a really high-end apartment product. But we think there's a tremendous opportunity here to reach certain young professional groups that maybe don't have a place for this type of housing product in the city today. And that's true for a couple really significant reasons. I think one, as I think was mentioned in passing earlier, this is a couple miles from the Florida Hospital project as it's proposed. It's a perfect fit for a lot of folks that would be working there. So we're excited about that, in addition to other employment opportunities that are kind of in the contiguous to the site. Also, I think the Tri-City study that the city was part of with Ocoee and Winter Garden kind of identified this is a needed use, so we think it kind of dovetails well with that. And as I said, we're talking about luxury apartments here, and there's kind of a industry standard definition out there for luxury apartments, which really, it just kind of lists the amenities that are typically associated with those apartments. So I'll just read a few of them. I'm trying to be sensitive to the time here, but wireless high-speed internet connection, fitness center, dog parks, we've got 2 here, walk-in showers, energy-efficient appliances, basketball courts, tennis courts, bike trails, granite countertops. We've got all those elements here. So I did just want to, like I said, just give you a little bit of a feel for what we're proposing and who we think would be a good fit for it. This is more just in the way of the amenities. This is the southern townhome portion, which is similar. I'm kind of personally excited about the shared rec space, which is, we've got a baseball field, multiple recreational opportunities in the community. I did want to say, I kind of alluded to this a minute ago, when we would be open to having a neighborhood meeting with the Clear Lake folks, we really want to establish a solid relationship there, be good neighbors with them. We would even entertain, if they were interested in it, in some kind of a shared arrangement there for them to take advantage of some of these shared recreational opportunities that maybe not internally in their community. So I did wanted to say that. That would be one of the things we would mention when we meet with them. The flex space, I'm going to ask actually Ken Stoltenberg with Apopka Clear Lake just to come up briefly to tell you, kind of what he's thinking here. But there's I don't know if I can see each other.
He's right behind you.
But there's a couple interesting things he wanted to mention to you on the flex space side.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ken Stoltenberg, and I represent Clear Lake Investments, LLC. The last piece of property, we're proposing a flex use, and what we're leaning towards and want to very thoroughly investigate is a boutique hotel hospitality component, most likely with a small to moderate sized restaurant to take advantage of what the city and the county is doing with Lake Apopka, as well as the trail aspect of it that's going on around there. We are aware that the coast-to-coast bicycle trail is going to run right through there, and we believe that with Lust Road kind of being the gateway to that approach in the city of Apopka, that for us to seriously consider a hospitality component makes a lot of sense long-term and is very good for the community. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm the hospitality guy, but we do work with the firm Mainsail, and Joe Collier is the principal. He most recently was the developer of Elevage in Tampa, Florida, which is adjacent and part of the Burns Steakhouse. I'm sure some of you have heard of that in Tampa. He also did a Autograph hotel in Beef Island, Tortola, British Virgin Islands, and a boutique condominium hotel, Mainsail, on Anna Maria Island. So he's a boutique operator, been in the business for years, and this is right up his alley. So I'm not going to sit here and promise you this is exactly what we're going to do, but it's something that we think is important for the community and can leverage the assets that are already there and help generate a lot of ancillary businesses through what we potentially can do with that property. So Mr. Moon and I have been working on that and think it potentially could be very important to help establish a hub for the type of recreation and ecotourism activities that you all and the county have invested so much in for the past 10 years to bring it up. And if we can be part of that, we get it. We really do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we had. We're available to answer questions, and we appreciate your support.
David, would you come back to the podium, because Commissioner Dean would like to ask a question. But would anyone like to ask any questions of the Clear Lake team before we bring David back?
No, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Yes, would you give me the name of the schools that will be taking care of these students at this new project?
From what
Your name
Apopka Elementary School, Wolf Lake Elementary, Middle, and Apopka High. I believe those are the 3 schools that this area is assigned to.
The reason I'm asking that question is Phyllis Wheatley is a brand new school, and I assume, this is an assumption, that it will not be fully, well, it will not be up to capacity. And why is it that it was not? I know it's not your responsibility, but looked like they would have included Phyllis Wheatley being a brand new state-of-the-art elementary, that they could utilize it also.
to utilize Apopka Elementary School, or?
I didn't say take students from Apopka Elementary. I'm saying they could put some of the students from this new development at Phyllis Wheatley. Look like they are segregating that school because it is in a African American community.
The Orange County Public Schools and the school board reviews the school zones, and when they modify an attendance zone, it's a somewhat lengthy process with the hearings. So I couldn't speak to whether the school board would take that in consideration.
Yes, I would appreciate that you would get with some of the top, not our representative, Christine Moore, from the upper echelon at the school board and find out why Phyllis Wheatley was not included in this. I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And just as a point of information, Apopka Elementary School was about to be rebuilt beginning...
Yeah, but Wheatley's already built.
Correct. And it has additional capacity as well.
Yeah, it will have addition, so why it was not included.
Well, that is a school board decision.
Yeah, I know that's what I said. We don't have any jurisdiction over that.
All right. We can certainly pose the question. Is there any member of the public who would like to address this Clear Lake, or I'm sorry, this Avian Point proposal? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. And I assume that to reiterate, if we approve this today, it includes the authorization to transmit to the Department of Economic Opportunity. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2372 on first reading.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Velasquez. A second by Commissioner Ruth. All right. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
That's good.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom. All right. Next on the agenda is ordinance number 2373, amending our land development code. And is there a lead-in on this? Welcome back, David.
David Moon, Planning Manager with the Community Development Department. Before you is the proposed amendment to Chapter 3 of the Land Development Code to create a small lot overlay zoning district. The intent of the amendment is to create a special overlay district that allows single-family lots with a width of less than 70 feet, but not less than 40 feet wide. The residential development that occurs under this small lot overlay district must propose a mix of housing types, being small typical lots, which are 70 foot wide or greater, townhomes or duplex. This proposed ordinance and language has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, which held 4 regular meetings and a workshop to discuss and review this proposed language. Ultimately, this language and the overlay district apply to 4 properties in the city. Based on the criteria accepted by the Planning Commission for this overlay district to apply to a particular property, it must have a residential high-density future land use designation and a R3 residential zoning category assigned to that particular property. In addition, it must either be located within a half mile to an existing or future commercial, industrial, or office area, or within a half mile from the entrance to limited access highway or abut a limited access highway. Further, the site must be a minimum of 15 acres and a maximum of 80 acres. Based on that, there are 4 properties in the city that qualify. It's not showing up on the screen. No, it's plugged in.
Donald to the rescue.
Those 4 properties are one which is south of Cimarron Boulevard behind the Albies and Racetrack, one at the corner of Keene and Sheeler, which is under the control of Mr. Ed Hampton, who has been one of the entities pushing and supporting this small lot option going back to 2.5 years ago. There is property owned by NMI Development just north of the 414 John Land Expressway. And the 4th property is an existing trailer park on the north side of Orange Blossom Trail. Based on the criteria that was recommended by the Planning Commission, those are the 4 properties today that would qualify for the overlay designation. However, that overlay designation is not assigned to those properties unless requested by the property owner through a rezoning process. That process requires a hearing before Planning Commission and 2 before City Council. In summary, the ordinance requires at least 4 parking spaces per residential unit, whether within the lot, on-street parking, or within a parking lot. It requires alleys to access a high portion of the residential units. It's required for townhomes and for single-family lots up to 2/3 of the lots must have access from a rear entry garage. It requires 2-car garages for single-family townhomes and duplexes. Apartments aren't allowed under the small lot overlay district zoning, even though the property has an R3 zoning which allows for apartments in up to 15 units per acre. It's highly unlikely that the developer under this overlay district would be able to build more than 8 or 9 units per acre.
Right.
For single-family homes and duplex units, the minimum square footage of livable area is 1,700 square feet for at least 75% of the units, with a minimum of 1,500 square feet for the remaining units. Townhomes have to have a minimum of 1,350 square feet. That's consistent with the current zoning code. AC units and utilities must be located to the rear of the residential structure unless there's a side yard setback of 7.5 feet or greater. The typical or minimum side yard setback is 5 feet. Maintenance. All townhomes and small lots with a width less than 50 feet must have the yard area maintained by the homeowners association. And there's a design standard requirement that the townhomes and small lots must be served by a mailbox kiosk that is decorative and sheltered. And there is a proposed modification to the city's development design guidelines that will be included at your second hearing regarding the small lot overlay district. That's a general summary of the conditions and development standards established or recommended by the Planning Commission.
Thank you, David. Any questions by the council? Go ahead.
There's still a little bit that I'd like to look into on this that I don't fully comprehend. I mean, I've always had heartburn over lots less than 70
Correct.
feet. I don't think that's a secret. But, you know, we did this big tour and everything of all south of here looking at places, and, you know, we saw some things were acceptable and some things that were pretty unacceptable. And I'd just like to have a little more time to look through this and maybe postpone till the next meeting, bring it up then if it's not a problem for somebody.
Okay.
Give me a little more time to look through it. I don't know what the rest of the commission feels, but that's kind of where I am on it.
I'm going to go with Bill Arrowsmith on that.
Okay.
Yes, I need some more time to look at it.
All right.
Because it's if I'm not mistaken, it's 4 separate locations, right, that they're doing this?
Well, no, not doing this. 4 separate properties that are eligible, that would be eligible to apply for this if we adopted this.
Okay. I like to kind of hold off and see.
Well, for just a little bit more general overview, you've been working, and the city has been working on this for how long? 18 months?
At least a year and a half.
Right, I was going to say 18 months. So.
I know a lot of people put a lot of work into it,
right.
But I mean, we're seeing the first draft of it.
Okay.
I just like a little more time. And I assume the ordinance number is 2373?
That's correct.
Did I get that wrong?
No, that is correct.
2373.
That is
Yeah.
correct. It
It
it's
said
printed wrong on
ordinance
the
number
ordinance.
2353 on the ordinance itself, so we just need to change that. But,
Okay, so that's a scrivener's error.
yeah. But if it's not a big issue, I'd like to postpone it for 2 weeks to have a little more time to look at it.
Mayor, I do think we need to read the title on this before we have further discussion.
Thank you, Jan. Would you please read the title?
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 2373, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the Apopka Code of Ordinances, Part 3, Land Development Code, Article 3, to establish a small lot overlay zoning district, providing for applicability, directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Thank you. My apologies for not doing that first. All right, so unless there's any other objection, I'm okay with holding it over for the next meeting. Does that seem to be the consensus of the council? Do we need to vote to do that? All right, so is there a motion to hold ordinance,
So moved.
hold it over? I was going to ask, do we need to have a public hearing since it's on the agenda?
You don't have to have a public hearing. What you need to do is table it until a date certain, and then take it up.
Okay.
But there's no more discussion after the table, so
Okay.
if anybody else has anything to say.
All right, so is there a motion to table until August the 20th?
So moved.
All right, motion by Commissioner Aerosmith. Table, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Velasquez. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll hold it over. Okay, we're now down to ordinance number 2374. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance 2374, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to vacate a portion of a utility easement located at 1472 West McCormick Road, providing directions to the city clerk for severability, for conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, ordinance number 2374. We're going to open this up for a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance number 2374? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. The chair will entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2374 on first reading and hold it over for a second reading.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Velasquez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Aerosmith. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ordinance number 2375, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2375, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to vacate a portion of the drainage and utility easement located at 1738 Lucky Penny Way, providing directions to the city clerk for severability for conflicts and an effective date.
Okay, we're going to open up ordinance number 2375 for a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance number 2375? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council, and the chair will entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2375 on first reading and hold it over for a second reading.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ruth. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dean. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. We're down to ordinance number 2376. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2376, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, rescinding Chapter 6 alcoholic beverages of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Apopka and adopting a new Chapter 6 entitled Alcoholic Beverages to allow for extended hours of sale of alcoholic beverages, for possession on roadways, alleys, and public right-of-ways, for possession within city parks for certain events, and providing for conflict severability and an effective date.
Thank you. All right. We're going to open it up for a public hearing. Is there, do we have any lead-in, Richard? Sure.
As you know, there's been a lot of discussion in the community about the alcoholic beverage ordinance. Staff's been working on the new code. There were a number of meetings. I know the mayor's met with the Ministerial Alliance and several others that we tried to get input from to discuss the various options that we have going forward. I think most of those are reflected in here, and we'll certainly have some discussion as we work through this ordinance. The basic tenets are just some alcoholic beverage hour changes, particularly on Sundays, and there's some issues as it relates to the proximity to schools and churches. So those are in there, and we'll be more than happy to discuss those as we go through the ordinance. Do you want to go through it line by line, or what's the preference?
Well, I've certainly read through it line by line. And just by the way, I want to just offer my own little lead-in on this. This is an issue that certainly has been one of great discussion here in the city of Apopka. And as many people remember, we held a community forum on June 24th that I thought was actually very well attended, considering that it was on a Tuesday night. And a lot of people could have been doing a lot of other things, but I think we had roughly 70, 75 people show up. And I think at that meeting, it's fair to say that the entire spectrum of public opinion on this issue was presented, and so I don't think there was any angle about this discussion that was not heard that night. We did do the questionnaire of people who attended, and I didn't bring those results out with me this afternoon, but of the two options for selling alcohol, whether it was all day or beginning at noon, over 80% of the people who attended that night were in favor of some form of alcohol sales. We then posted that same questionnaire on the city's website, and again, roughly the same proportion of the two options for allowing for alcohol sales on Sunday. It was over 80%. Clearly, this is an issue. The other thing that we talked about this at at the very first meeting that we had of the Mayor's Task Force. And I actually thought that was a very useful discussion. We have people in the community, and it was reflected in that room that day, who think, why are we even talking about this? Let's just do it, get it over with, and go on. But clearly, in this community, there are people for whom the consumption of alcohol and not consuming alcohol on Sundays is a faith-based issue. And so we had in the room that day that perspective reflected as well. And some of the people who were there that day are in this room. I won't call them out. But when people who reflected that faith-based background talked about this issue from their heart and explained how it was a core value that they can't be shaken from, and a core value that the kind of expression was, if we steamroll this community on this issue, what are we going to be steamrolled on next? For the people who, I can call them the no-brainer people, the people who think this is a no-brainer argument, I saw lights go on over their head, because I don't think, quite honestly, that they'd ever been exposed to that kind of thinking before. And then that statement was reinforced by another member of our task force. And so that perspective enlightened a lot of people. And I think through this whole conversation, it's been enlightening, I hope, to both sides of the issue, people who don't want any consumption and people who just want to move forward. I think it's been enlightening that we have this big community called Apopka, and a lot of different perspectives are represented. And at the same time, if we talk to everybody in an open, honest, and respectful way, that people can see that there's a middle way, there's a way to compromise that allows everybody's perspectives to be heard. So with that, I'll open it up to any comments from the council, and then after that we'll open it up to comments from the public.
I'd rather hear from the public.
Sorry?
You want
to hear from the public first? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Do we have anybody who's put down a speaker card?
We have a number that have put in cards. They haven't indicated whether they specifically want to talk about the alcoholic ordinance, except for a couple. Reverend James Hicks.
Reverend Hicks, are you still in the room? Yes. Would you like to come forward? Reverend Bradford, would you like to come forward?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to the
Would you state just your name and address for the record, please?
Pastor Hezekiah Bradford, Jr., 573 Smokeman Court, Apopka. I'm the president of both the South Apopka and the Apopka Christian Ministerial Alliance. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, this discussion that we've had, apart from the council and also with the mayor, not so much that we are totally against what is taking place, because we have no scriptorial background or backing to say that alcohol cannot be sold on Sundays. However, we do have some issues with the ordinance as it is printed. Number one, we have an issue with the buffer that alcohol will be sold within 100 feet of churches, schools, parks, etc. We tried to compromise the issue because I know that the past buffer was 750 feet. We have a church that is on the corner of 10th and Central that is less than probably 150 feet away from a store that is actually closed on Sundays. And that area already is a very highly, I would say, crime-induced community. And so now this particular church does not get out of church by 12. And so they would be confronted with people standing right across the street with more than likely open containers and drinking alcohol. And that store would probably be open on Sundays, whereas it was once closed. So we are asking that, and we also gave the mayor a letter, and it was my intent to get a letter to all of the council members showing that we believe not only is this going to increase crime from a alcoholic perspective, but we are putting our children at risk also. Because now we're saying that we're going to sell alcohol within 100 feet of parks, schools, and churches. And I have an issue because we're saying we're looking at a fairness issue. But what about the fairness issue when it comes to our children, who should be our number one agenda when it comes to safety? And we know that most of the vehicle accidents and all of that is created from alcoholic sales and drinking. So then, are we going to remove what we may call a 20 miles per hour speed bumper because the drivers don't want to drive 20 miles per hour? So now we're going to remove the total not selling alcohol on Sundays and the bumper from which we could eliminate some of these issues when it comes to selling as close as 100 feet to schools, churches, parks, and other government facilities. Mr. Mayor, we have an issue with that. And so, if we can do a compromise of saying we don't have to look at the 750 feet, but I do definitely think that 100 feet is too close. And if you look at some of the churches, and when we identified churches, this is what we said. We said long-standing churches, for instance, New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, which is one of the pillar churches of the South Apopka community, and a store that will be selling alcohol. We're not looking at every church from the standpoint of storefronts. We understand that they may pop up at any location. But when we look at a church such as New Hope, then we look at First Baptist, some other churches that is going to be impacted tremendously by the sale of alcoholic beverages. We would like for y'all to revisit this, not vote on this as it is written.
Thank you, Pastor Bradford. Any questions? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Pastor Page.
James Page, 4416 Rock Hill Loop, Apopka, Florida. Just a couple of questions of clarification. At this point, is the ordinance, my understanding as I read it, that the churches have been taken out now, it's just strictly schools, or is it still 100 feet from church and school? Yeah, schools only. So, okay. Brother Brett, the problem is you've taken the church out, so now it's strictly school.
Right.
I think that would be one big thing we would say. That's, The other thing I noticed, I think the ordinance said for schools, an hour before, an hour after, or something they can sell. Is that correct? Is that what I understand?
No. They can't sell within that hour before and an hour after.
But after that hour, they can, my point. Well, the problem is a lot of the schools have after hour, there's games, there's football games, there's PTA meetings, there's a lot of activities after school that I think could create a problem. Third question is, does it include private schools or is this strictly public schools? A lot of our churches have private schools and it just says schools. Is that going to include our school or are we not included in that?
The definition of schools says a facility used for education or instruction in any branch of knowledge, public or private.
Okay, good.
Including the following preschool, elementary, etc.
Okay, thank you. So our issue is the buffer, the church is being excluded from that. I think is a problem, especially for the churches at night. Most of our activity for the youth and children every night, is there. So if, even, I think the buffer for the church is very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Page. Any further comments from the public before I address that question? Yes, sir, Mr. Griffin.
Good evening.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is James Griffin. I live at 235 West 10th Street. I've been a parker for 69 years. And I don't see the purpose not having alcohol bill on Sunday. Apopka is the second largest city in Orange County. We can't get a bill on Sunday till after 12 o'clock. Anywhere in Orlando, city or county, you can buy beer at 7 o'clock. I just don't know what's the difference. The church he was just gentleman was talking about, I live right down the street from the church. It's been like that forever. But what happened, New Hope faces Central now. But when I was going to that church, it faces 10th Street. That's why he got the beer license, because the church was the store there before the church. That's the reason you got the beer license. But if you want to sell beer on Sunday, I don't see why not. More money, more taxes for the city.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Let me just speak to the church issue, because it did come up in our discussions. And here was the problem. The problem was regarding New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. If you increase the buffer to protect New Hope, you were going to affect other businesses that have great. Well, I maybe shouldn't say that. Other businesses near other churches that have no issues with their neighbors, where there's no dispute between the neighbors. And there were, 4 or 5 instances of churches where they were going to fall within an expanded buffer zone. So, believe me, Chuck Vavrick and I went round and around and around as well as Chief Manley, who brought this issue up. Round and around and around, trying to figure out how you write language that is protective of most situations, but then addresses the fairness issue at the same time. One of the things that we've been dealing with, again, is this fairness issue. So we've got businesses, for example, like Walmart, currently under the current ordinance, can't sell alcohol on Sundays, but catty corner across the street, the 7-Eleven, which is grandfathered into Apopka, when they formerly were in Orange County, is allowed to sell beer. Wawa at the corner of Bradshaw and 441 can't sell alcohol on Sundays, but just down the street is this discount liquor store where they're in an Orange County enclave, so they can sell alcohol. We've got Publix, which can't sell because of our ordinance, but down the street is a little convenience store that does sell alcohol. And by the way, advertises with a big billboard, we sell beer on Sundays, which I find unsightly. So we've got I'm not sure that the English language has the ability to create a buffer zone that is both protective in all situations that we can envision, and yet flexible in the situations where there is no question of a dispute between the neighbors. And so we did address the school issue. Quite honestly, in Apopka today, there really are only 2 schools where this is even an issue. And again, we came up with the buffer zone that we came up with because there was a previous request from a business owner that was affected by the current ordinance, who wanted to sell beer and wine on Friday and Saturday nights to try to increase her clientele. The way that we're proposing this would allow her to do it, but unfortunately she went out of business before this ordinance could be addressed. So we've explored every option that I can come up with to try to create a protective buffer that is at the same time flexible enough to provide for fairness among our merchants. Yes, sir.
The current ordinances
What is the buffer now? Is there a buffer now for churches under the current ordinance?
It's 750 feet under the current ordinance.
Okay, so help me here. It's 750 feet now. We're just going to eliminate it altogether? I don't understand what you were saying. There's churches that are...
Well,
I'm sorry, you're saying, right, how can they be there?
We tried to come up, so we said 150 feet, right? Well,
Right.
it's 150 feet.
Right.
That addresses that situation, but now we have another situation just down the street from here where there's a business that has no problem with its church neighbor.
Sure.
And there's more separation just because of the way that the front doors are arranged, but falls within the same parameters. So I fixed one situation and I've created another problem over here.
And I don't think you're going to fix all the situations.
Right.
And I understand that. I think for us as church, it's for safety for our kids, our parishioners. I think to me, I think here's the possible could happen. There's a lot of talk about all the dollar stores we have in town and all that. That was one of the big issues. Well, what's going to happen now? We change this code. Who's going to stop anybody from Congo Popkin setting up? And that's my concern. Are we going to open the door to, I know we all want restaurants. I get that. I have no problem with the restaurants. But how about the bars or the nightclubs? I mean, I don't know what this is going to open up. And I don't know that we do. The churches are just saying, why go from 750 to 0? That's what I'm hearing. In my understanding, that's the ordinance. 750 to 0, now there's no buffer whatsoever. To us, to me, personally, not us, but to me, I think that is very, I don't understand why. Since, look, you're 750 now, you're going to let them now move within, everybody can move within 100 feet. Okay, so why aren't the churches, I don't understand why the churches aren't included, except these issues that you have, but that's beside the point. These people, and I think part of our issue is, our churches are established, we're here, and they know, the people that are moving to Apopka, they know the ordinance when they move here. And once they move here, and now all of a sudden they want to do something, well, you need to, I understand, I don't mind compromising. I think you've been, honestly, Mayor, we appreciate the compromise. It's been done on the hours and all, we really do. I don't mean to be hard about it, but from the pastors that I talked to, they said they're very concerned. Well, all of a sudden the churches are just, if there's a buffer for the schools, there's a reason. Well, we think the same reason should be applied to the churches for safety reasons.
And the only thing that I can tell you, Pastor, is the Chief Manley knows the distances between there are 4 or 5 different instances where there's a church in close proximity to either a convenience store or another retail establishment. And establishing a buffer for one creates a problem for another. And we came down to, and at some point this discussion gets down to core values, right? I mean,
No, honestly, it's safety. Listen, to me, I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you could say the same thing about the schools. Don't have any buffers for the schools either then. I mean, see, I guess that's my point.
We were able to devise language with the schools that met kind of the basic fairness test. So,
I hear what you're saying, and I just don't quite agree. But hey, we appreciate the consideration, and I would just ask all the council members to think about that. I think it's a fairness issue for all of us.
All right. Anyone else from the public who would like to speak? If not, Pastor Hicks.
To the mayor and the commissioners,
and
Pastor
please,
Hicks.
Please state your name and address.
1917 Palm Vista Drive, Apopka, Florida. I've been a resident here now almost 18 years and proud to be in Apopka. To just kind of not add on, but I agree with the previous gentleman that just spoken. And my thing is, as a solution, Mayor, I would think that y'all heard about grandfathering, right? Instead of bringing it down to that buffer zone, instead of bringing it down from 750 down to whatever, why don't we compromise it but not bring it down that low? And then grandfather, give those guys that's already being affected with the current buffer, let them remain there, but once that business turnover or fold or whatever, the new owner come in, they got to abide by the new buffer, which will be 750 or 500 or whatever we have. That will affect everybody. Those that already fall under the guidelines, and you don't want to kick them out and cause their business to go bad or whatever. But once that business turn over, exchange hands or is sold, the new owner has to come under the buffer zones. I think that would be fair. That means then the current ones that already qualified will remain qualified, and then those that doesn't, once that business is sold and it's under new management, then they'll have to come under the new buffer guidelines, and then we will still have some buffers for our schools and our churches. And the church say? Does that make sense? You understand?
I understand what you're saying, and I guess I would ask, is that, what problems do we create for ourselves if we do that? Do we create any problems for ourselves?
You can certainly write the ordinance around grandfathering items in. I certainly understand the argument. We went from 750 to 0 on the churches, so maybe that's something that we could have your first reading, and we can come back and see if there's some compromise there with that in terms of grandfathering. Let's take a closer look at just what churches are affected and what those ramifications would be if that's the route you all would like to go. We can certainly do that.
Well, I know that Chief Manley, he looked at this very specifically and gave me, a report on each situation that he knew about. It was pretty comprehensive, I thought. So, thank you, Pastor Hicks, for your suggestion.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Anyone else from the public who'd like to address this issue? If not, we'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to the council. Is there any discussion by the council?
You've heard the story before, but it's not a new issue by any means.
Right.
When I was pretty actively involved with the chamber as far back as 1985, I had the mindset that several people have today, that we should do something here that would mirror whatever Orange County's ordinance was, and from all the reasons that we've heard recently. And at that time, my fellow church members and constituents, they taught me that my mindset was not in the right place through a couple of elections, and which has, that's history. But still today, I think from the people that I'm hearing from, my constituents today that I'm hearing from mainly, want to keep things the way they are. And I know that during the latest campaign, we've heard that was a major issue out there among the voters. And, I felt, originally when I heard that, I thought, what a shame. And then when I listened to some of these people say, yes, that was the key thing in the whole campaign, I thought, wow, what a great city we have, and how well the city's being run, and everything else here must really be good, because you have no complaints about any of that. The main issue is about this alcohol ordinance. So, from that standpoint, it's something that, as the straw ballot showed, it passed 80%. Mm-hmm. If it were on a referendum, it would probably pass 70%. But it's just one of those things that we hear different things from different people. So.
It does. It definitely depends on who you talk to. But any other comments from the council?
Yes, I would like to know how much revenue by selling alcohol on Sunday will these merchants gain by selling it?
It kind of depends on the merchants that you talk to, and none of the merchants. Believe me, I talked to Publix and I talked to Winn-Dixie, I talked to Walmart. they'll tell you that they're in favor of it, but they're not willing to come here and speak in front of the council, largely because that's a business issue for them. But if you talk to Publix, they say they lose about $7,500 a week on not being able to sell alcohol. And that's everything from not just the alcohol itself, but the stuff that people buy kind of in concert with alcohol. So chips and ice and limes and stuff that people buy for parties. Publix said $7,500. Winn-Dixie said $5,000. Walmart didn't want to hazard a guess. The people who own the Compare or Compare grocery store on 436 behind the Aaron's Rena Center, their story is they have people, especially Hispanic customers, who come to the store on Sundays because they're on their way to family gatherings here in Apopka. That store sells specialty brands from Hispanic countries, and those customers come specifically to buy those brands on Sundays, and when they put it on the counter, they're told, sorry, we can't sell you anything. Well, where can we go buy beer is the question. And the owner of the store tells them, you can go down the street to the 7-Eleven at 436 and Piedmont Wekiva Road, because, again, that's a store that's in the enclave. So that merchant has to tell customers he can't serve them. He has to send them to his competitors down the street. So revenue is, if you just take the examples of Publix and Winn-Dixie and say, that's, $12,000, times that by 52, times that by the number of stores that we have in Apopka, you can get, on an annual basis, a number that reaches, 6 figures, maybe even 7 figures.
But how much of that do we get?
That's a separate issue. And what I'm told is the tax revenue issue is not really that big of a revenue gainer for the city. The sales tax is paid, is remitted to the state, and the state sends it back to Orange County. We get the second largest share of property tax revenue among the cities because we're the second largest city. So because the money goes into a big pot and is redistributed back to us based on our population, we're not going to see that dramatic an increase in revenue as a result of doing this. And the second thing is there's a small alcohol sales tax that, again, there'd be really just a nominal increase in revenue. So revenue it's certainly part of the discussion, but it's not a real driving factor in this debate.
It's to show you how minuscule the our tax that we get back is about $15,000 a year.
Today. With the sales 6 days a week. So $15,000 plus one extra day.
Richard, should we vote to sell it, how much would we increase our revenue?
I don't know. You could take the number and divide it by 7 and say that's 6, and that's what so roughly $2,500. But I'm sure in that same calculation, some people are already buying Monday through Saturday because they know they can't buy on Sunday. So are you going to get that total increase? Right. So
that's what I'm thinking. If I want beer and I know I want it on Sunday, why shouldn't I buy it on Saturday?
Well, and I think that's the point the mayor was trying to make. This isn't really a revenue issue for the city of Apopka.
It's convenience, it's lifestyle, it's fairness, it's and among the other things that I've heard is just for example, the large companies that are out there doing kind of economic development research on where they want to locate their new communities. They used to send people to scout out communities, but today they send computer programs and computer software out to search for what your municipal codes say. And when they do those searches, if your codes align with what is typically found in other communities, then you go on the list of communities to be considered. But if your codes are not in alignment with what many other communities have, then you don't make the list of communities to be considered. And so that's, again, an issue, and that's one of the reasons why when we started drafting this ordinance, we said, let's see how closely Apopka's ordinance can align with that of Orange County's so that our ordinances are reflective of what's happening in the community beyond us. So, and I think Chuck did it, Chuck, I've been harassing Chuck for the last 2.5 weeks about tweaking this ordinance, so he's done a pretty good job of trying to build everybody's wishes into
And
this.
to that point, there's still people that don't get it. They think you can't buy a drink and a Apopka on Sunday
Correct.
with your meal. There's still people say that's why we don't have restaurants in Apopka, and they absolutely just don't get it, that you can.
Right.
And that's not keeping restaurants from coming here, but this, whatever you want to call it, Wise Fairy Tale, whatever, it's...
Well, right. I mean, if you have a restaurant of more than 50 seats, we do, in this ordinance, we would reduce that to 25 seats, but
Sure.
just to allow smaller restaurants to
But
flourish.
that doesn't keep restaurants from coming here.
Correct. Correct. We can stipulate that. All right. Well, is there any more comments from the council?
Can I just ask about that buffer zone?
Mm-hmm.
If it's 750 right now,
Correct.
and there isn't a problem selling alcohol beverages from Monday to Saturday, and we're changing so that we can allow the selling of alcohol beverages on Sunday, why does that change the buffer zone?
We came up with the buffer zone. I had a meeting with the Apopka Ministerial Alliance, and they did express this issue regarding churches, and they did express this issue regarding schools. I went from that meeting back to staff, and I said, how can we equitably come up with a buffer for churches that addresses the issues of the couple churches that we know about that might be an issue? And as Pastor Bradford mentioned, New Hope Missionary Baptist Church is one that has a potential issue. If we put that buffer zone in place for that church, now we've created problems for other businesses that are in close proximity to churches that don't necessarily have the same potential for the issue with New Hope. So we're fixing one problem and creating others. And that was why we said ultimately that let's institute the buffer for schools, because that is an equitable solution for those businesses in close proximity to schools, but we couldn't come up with an equitable language that solved everybody's problem with regards to churches.
So the suggestion that Reverend Hicks made about grandfathering, is that a viable compromise for the church so that they can come on board at least and agree with the sale of alcohol beverages on Sunday? So it doesn't seem that we've abandoned them in their consideration.
I think what you find in any ordinance, the unintended consequences are always the deal that you have to look at. This being no
Correct.
exception. Somebody's ox is going to get gored. And that's the question. How can you reduce that to the least amount of oxes getting gored? And that's what we're trying to look at here.
Yeah, we've seen
We're at
unintended
750 now, and we know what those numbers are. Is there a number in between there that those are things that they have explored? You still have some that even, if you go to 100 feet, they're still not going to be able to comply with that. So, that's the
rub.
That's the answer nobody wants to hear. So.
Right. That's the rub.
Okay.
So I think Richard did mention, though, that there is room to explore.
I think this commission is certainly wanting to do the right thing here. And what we could do is you go ahead and have your first reading and have us look at some of these issues even more in depth now that we've gotten some additional public input, and let's see if there is some room there for compromise.
Okay.
All right.
And I assume that issue is the 750 square foot.
Well, the buffer, right. The buffer, creating some kind of buffer that's equitable for churches. All right. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2376 with that caveat that the staff will look at creating some kind of equitable buffer zone for churches when we consider it at our next meeting. Is there a motion?
All right, so moved.
Motion by Commissioner Velasquez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ruth. Is there any further discussion by the council? Any further discussion by the public? Yes, Reverend Bradford.
Again, a couple of further discussion. Mr. Mayor, when we sat with you and we looked at the survey, and we plainly stated to you that that survey was not a survey that was even considered to be even announced in a public meeting, and yet you did announce that as being a survey. And we know that that survey was not scientifically done at all, and you announced that it was an 80% agreement from what you got. That does not speak to the city that we're living in. So that shouldn't even be mentioned. It shouldn't even be something that we should even take into consideration. The next thing, Mr. Mayor, that we want to say too is that I believe that we can make a compromise on this particular buffer to where we're not calling out the churches, but we're so concerned about the businesses. And we're already seeing and hearing that it really doesn't matter because the city's not going to get any money anyway. So then why are we eliminating the churches, the people that actually spend money in this community for you to have your job and everybody else? And we're overlooking the idea that the churches are important. The church is very important, and we need to consider the issue that we have children, we have people that pay taxes, that are very concerned about this issue. And if it doesn't make a difference that you're going to make any more money, I have to speak to the council as a whole. Commissioner Aaron Smith has been here forever, and he knows for a fact that this is not going to be a major thing that's going to change the community from an economic perspective. We talk about the buffer. I think you might want to talk a little closer to Chief Manley, because I believe that he's in agreement that we need to look at this situation from how it is going to affect our children, our churches, more so than just the sales of alcohol. And I totally disagree. I think that y'all need to revisit this before you make any decision and not even vote on it. That's my stance on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Bradford. I just wanted to address what Reverend Bradford said. Our survey was certainly not scientific. Hold on one sec. So the survey was definitely not a scientific poll. It was a survey done that was posted on our website. It was publicized in the Apopka Chief. It was written about in the Orlando Sentinel. It was on Channel 9. We posted it on the city's Facebook page, so we publicized it, I think, to the greatest extent that we possibly could. It is absolutely accurate to say that it wasn't done on a scientific basis, but we felt like it was one indicator that could be looked at in terms of measuring community sentiment. So thank you for that, Reverend Bradford. Dr. Shackelford.
Ray Shackelford, 2082 Carpathian Drive. I would like to ask this council to reconsider that motion and agree to table this so we can take in consideration the grandfather clause. I'd just like for you to reconsider your motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll we can pass this on first reading and address that at the second reading, just to keep the discussion moving forward. All right. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Sylvester Hall, 981 Ashworth Drive, Apopka, Florida. I just have a quick few comments. As a citizen of Apopka, I'm a retired Navy 2003. I've been residing in Apopka for the last about 20 years. This is good to hear the input that is coming. One thing I would like to suggest is that before you turn it over to the public, because you guys shared a lot of good information, and once the public get that information, then they can kind of rebuttal a little bit. So I would like to see you turn it over to the public first. You guys discuss your inside knowledge, because sometimes we don't have that knowledge of the complete scope like you have. And it brought up a lot of questions for me. Will the pastors please stand? Now, me just being a concerned citizen of the church, I don't think anybody would want to see alcohol or any type of thing open up right next door to the church, because we also experience a lot of things where we see drug and alcohol going on right side the church, and those types of things we don't want to see. As a citizen and as my trusted leaders of the community that we place that position upon you guys to do, always put the welfare of the community or the families first. And I think if we do that, we'll have a great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll vote on the motion, which is to approve ordinance number 2376 on first reading, and ask the staff to explore what an equitable buffer might be. Correct? Okay. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed?
No.
Only Commissioner Aerosmith votes no, right? So the motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Aerosmith voting no. All right. Thanks, everyone. Now we're down to site approvals. Final development plan for the Lady Bird Academy of Apopka. And we have a lead-in from Jay Duvall.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Jay Duvall, Community Development Director of the City of Apopka. The site plan before you this afternoon is the Lady Bird Academy of Apopka. The owner is Marshall Howard, Fragmenti Engineering, in care of Sherry Fragmenti as the engineer and applicant. It's located, as seen up on the screen, east of Rock Springs Road and south of Welch Road. Land use is commercial. The zoning is C1. It's currently vacant. It's proposed to be a daycare facility, 13,388 square feet. The site plan is shown up on the screen. The stormwater, which is on the east side of the property, over on this end, is proposed to be a wet retention pond, and I'll get to the waiver request on that here in a few minutes. The landscaping has been designed to meet our water-wise ordinance. Parking meets our code. However, there will be, for the entrance, they need to get Orange County's approval and Florida Department of Environmental Protection for the driveway which crosses West Orange Bike Trail. The elevations, which are included in your package, generally meet our city's guidelines. As I mentioned, there are 4 waiver requests. First one is to waiver the 6-foot masonry wall on this northern section of the property. What's shown on the screen now is the property to the north is actually currently zoned R1 AAA. It's a vacant piece of lot, a vacant lot right now, and staff does not anticipate it to be residential. So we don't object to no masonry wall on the north property line. The second waiver request is for the dumpster. Material, typically, we require brick or stone. They would like their dumpster to replicate the building that you see in here, the materials that are going to be used. So it'll be stucco finished to match the exterior of the building. Staff does not object to that waiver. The applicant also requests to have a wet retention pond. It will be fenced as per our requirements of our code due to the groundwater table in that area. That's the best design. Staff does not object to that waiver request. And the last waiver request is the standards for typically requires 30% of the primary facade to be composed of windows and doors. This type of use doesn't lend itself to that requirement, so we also do not object to that waiver. The Development Review Committee recommends approval of the Lady Bird. The Planning Commission at the July 8th meeting recommended approval 6-0 for the Lady Bird Academy and acceptance of the waiver request. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council?
No, I've actually seen the Lady Bird Academies and Winter Park and Winter Garden, and it's basically the same building that they're going to be building up here in Rock Springs Ridge. I think, is that standard for them when they go into that franchise to build that particular type of building?
I'm not familiar with Lady Bird myself.
Yeah, I've seen two facilities in other towns. There's no one here from Lady Bird?
The applicant is here.
Oh, okay.
Would the applicant like to make a presentation or answer any questions?
Sure.
Miss Lady Bird herself?
Sherry Fragamini with Fragamini Engineering, 6801 Wallace Road, Orlando, Florida. I'm here to answer any questions you had, and I noticed you had one about the franchisees. This is a franchisee location, and they are all the same building, yes.
Okay. And because I have visited the Lady Bird Academy for my own two grandchildren. Right. So.
Great.
Thank you.
And any further questions?
No.
Any questions from the public? If not, we'll bring it back to the council, and the chair would entertain a motion to approve the final development plan for Lady Bird Academy of Apopka.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Ruth.
And I will second.
Second by Commissioner Velasquez. Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
I'm going to stay on this. They are a client of the bank.
Okay.
Owners of property.
All right. We'll have a roll call vote. Commissioner Ruth.
Aye.
Commissioner Dean.
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You start from here.
All right.
And
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Commissioner Dean. Commissioner Velasquez.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, so the motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Aerosmith abstaining. Next, we have final development plan for Verizon Wireless, and a lead-in by Jay Duvall.
Thank you, Mayor. Jay Duvall, Community Development Director, City of Apopka. Verizon Wireless Store, owner is Camille Investments Group LP. The applicant is Rock RDP1 LLC, and the engineer is Rogers Engineering. It's located, as shown on the screen, east of Lake Doe Boulevard and south of West Orange Blossom Trail. It is land use of commercial, zone C2. It's currently vacant. It is for a Verizon store, 2,380 square feet. The stormwater pond has been designed and meets our land development code, along with the landscaping and irrigation meets our water-wise ordinance. There are 17 parking spaces. As shown on the screen, oops, maybe not. As shown on the screen, there are two proposed cross-access easements to the east. This property, as shown on this, was part of a larger piece that came over here to the east that will eventually have another connection to 441. Their current access is via Lake Doe Boulevard, and it's basically comes off of 441 as right in, right out with the restricted median, which allows a left in. The elevations, as are in the package, meet our in the intent of our guidelines. There is one waiver request. Again, this one involves the retention pond, only in that typically for a fenced retention pond, it's required to have a 10-foot maintenance berm. Because of the size of this pond being as small as it is, they've requested to have a 5-foot maintenance berm, and staff does not object to that waiver request. The Development Review Committee does recommend approval, and the Planning Commission, is July 8th meeting, recommended 6-0 the approval of the Apopka Wireless store along with the waiver requests, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions by the council?
Jay, did you say that that property, not just the part that's outlined in red, but the whole property is owned by one party?
It was owned by one party. They either have or are doing a lot split to cut this western portion out. We did work with them to make sure that whatever was remaining could be developed. So they gave us some scenarios that showed that something could still be developed on the remaining portion that's left.
It just seems like we're closing the door for the future. You know, we talked about when we approved these developments to the south of there over the last several months. If we ever had to expand Lake Doe to get it out, to have a turn lane coming out of there to the right, or if we ever had to do anything to Lake Doe Boulevard, we're really restricting ourselves by doing this time. It seems like if we could work something out to get them to move even 20 or 30 feet to the east and make some type of compromise with them, get them to move to the east, at least, like I say, maybe 30 feet. Looking down the road, I think it'd really be to our advantage. I don't know if that's possible, but in the negotiations, I would think anything is possible if we're approving the deal.
Typically, when we're negotiating, we have a long-range plan that would show a future improvement or something we might want to do. There is already some opportunity there in that they have their divided median, which is a little bit large. It was 2 lanes coming out of there, coming next to this property, because it used to be a left out and a right out. But as you know, DOT came in and with their access management restricted the median. So right now you have the large lane, and all they can do out of Lake Doe Boulevard is turn right onto 441. They cannot turn left anymore. So you have a lot of pavement right there currently.
And that's the only way in and out, though, at this point?
At this point, yes, sir.
And down
into this site,
yeah.
As you cross the tracks and get into the residential, you know, we have the new connection out to Binion Road through Lake Doe Reserve.
I guess my point is when they, you can go to the next slide or whatever, but when the next parcel develops, you've got that, you've got the common right-of-way there for both of them.
Well, now, I've got this, I don't know whether I can get this thing turned.
The way I'm looking at it.
But the way I'll have to, north is to the right. So 441 is to the right on this picture. This is 441. Right. This is Lake Doe Boulevard.
Correct. And the in and out is right there.
The in and out is right here.
When they develop the piece to the east, that's going to be, that driveway is going to be expanded to the east.
Well, this connection here will come on down this way. Okay. And the scenarios have any other connection to 441 further to the east.
My only point is, it's like water running downhill. It's going to go the easiest way. And once we block that off of there, when you open that up and traffic gets backed up waiting to get out on 441, they're going to turn right and come through that. I've got a little bit of experience with that myself.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But they're going to turn and come through that parking lot at 30 or 40 miles an hour and come out onto 441 down here because it's going to be easier.
Right,
And
similar, we had another project come through just recently that you haven't seen yet that had a similar situation, opening up to possible cut-through traffic that you're describing. At that scenario, we had the traffic engineer address it in their traffic report, and when this, for Verizon, as you know right now, it doesn't go anywhere, but when this next site comes in, they more than likely will have to do a traffic study, and we'll have to address it at that time.
But that's my point. We're closing the door at that point because this building is already going to be built and their land is all going to be used up abutting Lake Doe Boulevard. If we can move it down now, even if we had to make some type of development concessions for them.
Well, but part of what you're describing, again, this is only a right out. You cannot do anything but right out. When it backs up, it's due to the traffic volume on 441, which is still under capacity, but
I think even with the right out, if you had room there for a merge lane on 441 in the future, a longer merge lane, and made that more accessible.
Are you speaking of them moving south 30 feet?
No,
because that's
no, east.
Right, east 30 feet.
Just open that up.
Because what you just described is a merge lane on 441, which would deal with the DOT right-of-way out here on the north.
Well, both. I mean, you'd have to get a traffic flow going better than it is right now. I mean, I understand it's all right in and right out, but it's still a very narrow right-of-way through there. I'm not trying to re-engineer it. I'm not qualified to do that, obviously. But I just wanted to throw that out for thought. So that's all I have.
Well, what kind of jeopardy do we put ourselves in if we put this on hold and address Commissioner Aerosmith's questions with the applicant?
You could certainly pass it, hold it over for a second reading, or table it to a date certain, and we could go back and meet with the applicant. Either way.
Do you have a recommendation, Commissioner Aerosmith?
Well, I don't want to delay progress on something like this. I'd like to move forward, but I also, with my experience, I mean, as I say, with traffic coming out of the bank right there, with that median that's in there, it just seems like it's such a confined area right there, the way it is right now. If we could just open that up more.
Well, I will say from the traffic standpoint, having been in the traffic engineering field a while, what you're describing is needing a dual right turn lane out of this subdivision.
No, not really a dual right.
Well, that's the only way. I mean, because of the limited distance you have, the only way to increase your volume out of there is to increase the laneage, because you cannot signalize that. DOT's already said no, the distance between there and Errol is too close, so you can't get a traffic signal there. The only way to increase the opportunity for volume to get out of Lake Doe in a single lane, you can't, because you have the volume on 441, which is the restriction right now. Unless that volume goes down, the opportunities to come out on the 441 is limited, unless you go with a dual right turn lane, which I don't know how you do that.
But I think from just a layman's perspective, when you're coming out of there, it just seemed like if you could cut off that corner around it there, I think we talked about that a little bit before, but if you could make that more accessible to get out in 441.
Well, that would get back to adding a merge lane on 441 more than Lake Doe Boulevard.
We might want to do that down the road somewhere.
And I believe DOT does have the right-of-way out there that could be accommodated in their current right-of-way.
Given this current plan?
Given this current plan, that affects the right-of-way on the north side here and not Lake Doe Boulevard.
Okay.
Does that address your issue?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any further questions from the council? If not, the chair would entertain a motion. I'm sorry, is there any comments by the public? Yes, sir.
Captain Guffin, 289 Lake Doe Boulevard. Obviously, I live on this road on Lake Marshall. We're not talking, when we throw out the word Lake Doe, there are currently Lake Doe Country Landing, which is actually what I live in, Lake Doe Cove, the new one that's coming in, what's the name of it? Yeah, the Cowpass. Lake Poe Reserve. Then there's Part 2 of Poe Reserve that goes out a little further. And then we have the new one that goes out to, I think, Binion Road, which if you really want to go around the long way to come back toward Apopka, I guess you could, but chances are you're going to cut right through and get on Lake Doe Boulevard to dump out right there. So we're really talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subdivisions on one tiny single lane road crossing a railroad track. And living in there right now with only 3 active subdivisions, it can back up past the railroad, past the entrance to Lake Doe Cove, and past the entrance to Country Landing. So it's a mess. And when we went to putting in, I know it's probably safer having a right turn only situation there, but with all the development and looking at traffic studies, probably piecemeal one at a time, rather than looking at the build-out, what's it going to look like, I'm real concerned with that road. So I don't know what engineering-wise needs to be done, but I agree with Commissioner Aerosmith that something ought to be looked at there, because it's a pain right now, but it's going to be a greater pain in the future when you have 6 active subdivisions coming out that one road.
Jake, can you address any of that? I mean, didn't we just say that the DOT has the right-of-way to be able to add some capacity there in terms of lanes to address this issue?
The right-of-way is there. I mean, you have the median and you have on each side of the existing lanes, they have right-of-way to expand. In their long-range program right now, the widening to 6 lanes of 441 is not in there, is not in the current long-range plan. The traffic studies, when they are done, they do take into account all the existing traffic on the roads and all the encumbered traffic, which is what we've approved. So any project we've approved prior to the one coming in is taken into account by the traffic engineer in his analysis. So when they analyze the traffic volumes for the roads, they do take that into account. You are looking at a unique situation in that the close proximity to Errol Parkway. You're looking at situations, we have contacted the railroad companies before and looking at alternative connections possibly in a brainstorming event a while back, but they are basically not allowing new crossings unless you close a crossing. So trying to create a new one gets very difficult in that scenario. The volumes on the road, for those that live there, I'm sure they appear to be high, but when you look at capacity-wise for a 2-lane versus a 4-lane road, it's nowhere near a 4-lane road capacity, so there's nothing that trips that to warrant widening to 4 lanes.
So the congested conditions occur at rush hour?
The congestion conditions are a scenario of the traffic light at Errol, believe it or not, because the high volume of left turns coming out of Errol Parkway and the high volumes on 441, there's only a short period of time that there's a gap for Lake Doe to come out onto 441, and that's the problem. We've looked at several scenarios. We attempted to create a gap before. Obviously, we might need to look at that again to see if there's some other way to create that. The problem is, as soon as you start stopping all the volume that's coming through there, now you're going to get the backing up on Errol, or you can get the backing up on 441. DOT is not going to be appreciative of us stopping traffic on 441. So it's a balancing act that needs to be looked at and see if we can do something. I will say that the DOT over the years have gotten away from the merge lanes, as we were talking earlier, coming out, because people don't use them. They have found it's really not, it's a waste of pavement anymore, because people will turn right and jump right into the lane instead of turning right onto the merge lane and then merging in, and they're having trouble with people, allowing people to merge in. So,
okay. All right, have we addressed everyone's concerns? All right, no one else from the public? If not, we'll bring it back to the council, and the chair will entertain a motion to approve the final development plan for Verizon Wireless. Is there a motion?
Commissioner Arrowsmith had asked if it can move 30 feet east. Would that be a problem to address that with Verizon? Would they do it if they were given some concessions? Because you're talking about future, not right now, but future, because it'll be a standalone building that will be built there. And if in the future they need to use the space there, then we won't be able to do anything because we have this standalone building standing there.
Well, let me just, here's where I am. Staff has reviewed it. The Development Review Committee has approved it. The Planning Commission approved it 6-0. We have negotiated the best possible plan under the city's current ordinances. And so it's been presented to us, having been reviewed by staff, the Development Review Committee, and the Planning Commission. And so we're being requested to approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And, I think that's the question. Our choices are either approve it or give it back to staff and ask them to go back and take another crack at it with the applicant. Am I stating that fairly?
Yes, you can do that, or we could quickly get a traffic consultant looked at interchange. We've certainly heard that issue enough recently with the development came up, and look at alternatives, realizing right now DOT isn't allowing, the traffic circulation that we'd like to see because of their rules. Maybe there's some other option. Maybe we need to do a frontage road there and move that down where there is a traffic light that can work. I don't know. I'm just saying that we could certainly do that and put it on the fast track and try to have something back here in 2 weeks if you wanted to do that.
I just think once we do it today, then it's over with.
Okay.
And it's, as I say, looking at it at long range. I mean, there's up in Zellwood there at 441 and whatever it is, 448. They have it's probably a 500, 300 foot merge lane, and it works so smooth where you come up to a stop bar, and if you're not there, you can turn right and merge into traffic. And the same thing you can do here. Right now, you come up to a stop bar, and you're almost facing a little bit, it seems like a little northwest, but it just seems like there's a little more room there, and there's some type of traffic pattern that could favor coming out of there and having a right turn merge instead of just an abrupt stop and then have to wait there and turn right.
Okay.
And if that's an option, if the DOT says no, it's not an option, let's forget about it and move forward.
All right.
Yeah, the worst case scenario for us, we're going to hold it up 2 weeks until we can address a couple of these concerns, and at least you'll have a comfort level knowing that we looked at it every which way.
Okay. All right. So, Commissioner Ruth.
I just wanted to ask one thing. I know we're asking DOT to do a lot. Has anybody thought of maybe moving down to Panera's or Wendy's, or not Wendy's, but Chili's, Staples? There's 3 entrances in that, and it's just one crossing of the railroad track. You're right in it.
Well, that's not the deal that's in front of us. I mean,
I know that. I'm just trying to throw that out there for the future conversation.
Okay.
Or thoughts.
Well, the consensus that I'm hearing is that we table for 2 weeks till August the 20th, and ask the staff to go back with the applicant.
And get our traffic engineer.
Okay, so the chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'm going to move that, and if we can do something, fine. If we can't, then I'll be the one to move the project.
We'll give it every chance. Motion by Commissioner Arrowsmith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dean. Any further discussion by the council? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
All right. We are down to department reports and bids.
I've just got a couple of things. Number one, we've heard some issues about the Lester Road. There's some concerns about the smoothness of the pavement, et cetera. As you know, we had to actually go through a wetlands there, and so we had some issues there. We are dealing with the developer, the contractor right now. We have not made the last payment. We've taken some tests and are talking with them about what we can do to improve that. So just so you all know, it's on the radar.
My neighbors will thank you. Anything else?
The only other thing is that the property that Commissioner Ruth was, I asked staff to give me some more information. The appraisal came in at $35,000 on that. The property appraiser's website is $22,563.
I did see that.
On that.
Okay. And we got it for
the individual did pay $4,900 for it, but she also paid us $12,393.03 for a lien that we had on the property for code enforcement. So when you iron it all out, she had about $19,000 in it. About $17,300 in it. So we assumed that little bit was a fair profit for her.
All right. Yeah, and don't think that I was questioning the buy. It's just the difference. The property appraiser neglects to tell you that.
Yeah, the property appraisers usually are about 75% of what the value is.
All right. Thank you, Richard. We're down to the mayor's report, and I would like to again revisit the issue of the city attorney. As everyone knows, we had a search process. We had 7 applicants turn in their responses to our request for proposals on Friday as of 10 a.m. We had a search committee that was comprised of Sharon Thornton and Jay Duvall and Jan Goebel from inside the city, as well as Pat McGuffin, Roger Simpson, who's an attorney who lives here in Apopka, and as well as Jeremiah Jaspon, another attorney who lives in Rock Springs Ridge, as well as myself. Everyone was given all 7 responses from the proposals to read over the weekend. We met on Monday at 2 o'clock here in the city. And lo and behold, every single member of the committee came up with the same recommendation for their number 1 choice. And it was very interesting to see this discussion because everybody came at it from a different perspective. Everybody had kind of their own reasoning, and it was fascinating. One member of our committee came up with a matrix, and it was Pat McGuffin who had a very systematic way of approaching, how he read and reviewed these applications, and I thank Pat for that because it really helped provide some structure to our conversation. So the number 1 choice was Cliff Shepard, who is currently the city attorney in the city of Maitland, as well as the city attorney for the city of Mount Dora. He also does a lot of work with community redevelopment agencies. Mr. Shepard is from a medium-sized firm. I think they employ a total of 8 people at the firm of Shepard, Smith, and Cassidy. And so he fell within the range of, he's not a sole practitioner, but he's not from one of the big 100-plus member law firms. He was also in the middle range in terms of price. He wasn't on the lowest end of the scale, but he wasn't at the higher end of the scale in terms of the applicants. I met with all of the applicants yesterday. Richard and I specifically met with Mr. Shepard. And so I think that, first of all, he just has an outstanding reputation. I got several calls from members of the community about Mr. Shepard. And so at this point, I'd like to recommend that the City Council approve the appointment of Cliff Shepard as Cliff Shepard of Shepard, Smith, and Cassidy as the new city attorney.
I'll move the committee's recommendation.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Aerosmith and second by Commissioner Ruth. Is there any further discussion?
Can I just ask one thing for clarification? On his, the proposal for the fee structure, It shows up the top there, $190 an hour for all firm shareholders. And then when you get down further, it says fees for items billed to third parties through an applicable pass-through ordinance shall be at regular firm rates, which are $350. So our fee is $190. We're getting a deal, is what he's telling us?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't quite understand what that meant.
And he offers a guaranteed period of 2 years.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, that was the only question I had.
Would you like to add to that discussion?
No, we had a good conversation with him. We just had some discussions on how the building would go, and he gave us some good advice on how he'd done it in the past. And,
okay.
Were the cases that he listed in there that his firm has handled, was that a sample of the success stories?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. He's the way that he describes himself is he began his career as an attorney, as a litigator, and practiced as a litigator for more than 20 years until he had an acquaintance who was a city attorney who asked him to kind of step in, and so he gradually moved into becoming a city attorney, and that's the only thing that the firm does, is they represent local governments.
I noticed they won all of them, so I just assumed he was giving us individual ones in which particular state.
And the other thing that I think is most notable, too, is he does a lot of work with CRAs. He worked very close, for those of you that knew David Cardwell. He was the attorney guru for years until he passed away with community redevelopment downtown, and this was his understudy, so he brings a lot to the table in that area.
All right, motion. There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And the last thing that I would like to say or contribute as part of the mayor's report is there is in the community, maybe here in City Hall, it seems to me that there has been I called it earlier today, a merry-go-round of character assassination that we've seen played out in the news media. And we've certainly seen it played out in other forums here in town. And I regret that it's taking place. It's certainly apparent that there were two sides to this election, and I managed to come out on top. But since the election, you know, we've heard more about division among the city council and division within the city. And I just want to say that if anyone in this room thinks that I've contributed to that division, I'm sorry. I have just a really strong feeling that I was put here for a reason, and the reason is to help take Apopka to the next level. And I would like to go in that direction. The one among the many things that Richard and I have discussed is, you know, there is no guidebook for how to transition from a 60-year incumbent to, to somebody that doesn't have that level of experience. There is no transition no guidebook for a city administrator who has worked for the same man for the last 40 years of his life, to dealing with somebody who is kind of completely brand new and has a completely different take on how the city goes. So I'm looking for asking people in this room, asking people in the city to stand down. Because I think that's important in terms of moving forward with the city of Apopka. So,
well, you know,
I'm sorry to get emotional.
No. But I can tell you, I think the public, obviously, they contribute heavily, because during the first 100 or so days of this administration, there's probably been almost 50 votes, 45 to 50 votes.
Right.
and that the public has this perception that there's all these 3-2 votes and we're so disjointed and we're not doing our job. There have been 3-2 votes out of 50 votes. So I feel very comfortable, very confident I'm doing my job, and I think we all are. But, it's just one of those things that there's, in a lot of ways, you can't control a lot of things that are going on. You can try as hard as you want to,
Right.
but you're not gonna stop some people and some things from occurring, and you just have to do your job and move forward. And I think that's what we all need to try to do. But
Well, we can all agree. I mean, we all live here in the city of Apopka, and we are a big community with lots of different interests and lots of different perspectives, and lots of people come at this from just a different background. We do have this core group who lives, who's lived in Apopka for all these years, who, were loyal to Mayor Land and loyal to the way that things have always been. And at the same time, we've got people who have moved here over the last 10, 15, 20 years who are not part of that core group, but who want to be part of the city of Apopka. And I quite honestly think that that's why I got elected, is because this relatively new group wants in. They want to be part of the city of Apopka. I can tell you the number one conversation that I have as in this job is people come to me and say, what can I do? How can I be involved? Put me to work. Give me a job. I had that conversation with two African American gentlemen today who are members of the fraternity Kappa Sigma. What's the name of the fraternity? Kappa Sigma. Is that right? Kappa Alpha Sigma, sorry. And each of these individuals has lived here for, 10, 13, 15 years. They've always wanted to be part of the city, but they just never figured out a way to plug in. Well, now that there's a new mayor, they felt like they could come here and have a conversation. And so both of them said, put me to work. So, again, I quite honestly think that if we're going to pick one reason why I got elected, it was that. So, anyway, I just wanted to have my piece said. That's it. So,
I appreciate you sharing it.
All right. Is there any old business council? Any old business public? Yes, ma'am.
Shanita Reed. I live at 651 O'Leary Court. I wanted to say, Mayor, that I think you're doing an excellent job, and all this stuff in the news, I wouldn't let it get to me. I want to address, when you had the presentation, Ms. Lorendo there, I wanted to speak then, but I noticed you didn't call for the public to speak at that time. So I wanted to get this out. It's all about the charter review recommendations, the final report. I am opposed to adding 2 more commissioners to the Apopka City Council. There are more important priorities to move this city forward than adding 2 more commissioners at this time. The focus should be looking for ways to save money, not spend for unnecessary costs such as this additional $26,400 per year. That's for the 2 commissioner salary, plus the cost of their benefits. And I do not know what the cost of the benefits are. Our current system of 4 commissioners with the mayor as the chairman has served us well, and there is no reason it can't continue to serve us well. Citizens want less government, not more. I want to caution about amending the charter to allow for more commissioners. If this is approved and adopted and it does not work out well, there will be no turning back and rescinding the action. Another page here. Now, I understand that if they add 2 more commissioners, it'll take, I believe she said, like 4 years. But I am seeing a 2015 and 2016 Apopka municipal election on the Orange County Supervisor of Election voter lookup website. The 2016 election is for our 2 existing commissioner seats who will be up for re-election. Commissioner Airasmith, and Commissioner Ruth. So what is the 2015 election in Apopka for? I called Orange County and was assured that it was to elect city officials, but no one in Apopka here seems to know. So as an Apopka voter, is this 2015 election to add 2 more commissioner seats? I can't help but wonder this is a done deal. And here's what the website lists. This is on mine. I'm sure if you live somewhere different, it may be different depending on where you live. But I live here in Apopka. 2014 primary election, 2014 general election, 2015 municipal election, my municipality is Apopka, and 2016 municipal election, 2016 primary election, and 2016 general election. So I would like to address the council, and whoever would like to answer that or knows anything, I appreciate it. Thank you.
She's right. If I looked up my own voter number with the Supervisor of Elections website, and it says that I'm eligible to vote in the 2015 election, so we need to call Supervisor Cowles and...
Yeah, I think Supervisor Cowles probably has us in the mix with the other municipalities. And
Okay,
probably
all right. We'll check on that. So we'll check. There's not a scheduled 2015 election.
2016 is our next scheduled election.
It could very likely be just a web script error, a web writing error. So we'll check into it, though. All right? Any other old business public? Any new business council? Any new business public? All right, we're going to... I'm sorry.
Yes, there was a new business. I'm sorry, Suzanne Kitten asked to speak under new business.
Do you waive it? All right, she waives her right to speak.
All right.
We're going to hold a budget workshop here on the topics of public safety. We're going to take a 10 to 15 minute break, and so we'll reconvene here in about 10 or 15 minutes. If there's no other business, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
You hurry up and go.
Okay. Just a second.
Thank you. And thanks everyone who chose to stay. This is the first of 2 budget workshops that we're planning for the month of August. And as I mentioned previously, what I'm hoping that we're going to do during these budget workshops is really do kind of Budget 101. And that's for my benefit as the new mayor of Apopka, for the benefit of our new commissioners, for the benefit of anybody who wants to learn about the city of Apopka and learn about our budget process. And fortunately now, we're also recording these meetings, and so that at least the audio is available on the web for anybody who wants to click in and listen to the audio of these meetings. So with that, we're going to do, this is really just educational. We're not going to really talk about cutting the budget. That's still the province of the staff in terms of cutting the budget based on the policy priorities established established by the council. So with that, Richard, do you have any lead-in?
I just think, just to add to what you said, keep in mind these are raw numbers. They are in the budget. We have not cut anything. This is what everyone in the departments and what we have received from the community have requested. So this is, as you pointed out, is just a basic overview. We'll get as in-depth as you want to get on some of those numbers. But when we actually get to the budget process, that's when you'll see the numbers actually starting to be cut. One of the other things we're going to try to give you some insight in how we prioritize dollars in the city. First and foremost has always been public safety. That's why we're starting with public safety. Then we'll follow up with public services at our next presentation. As you know, those are The other things that are near and dear to your life, you want to be able to make sure that your water's turned on, you can flush the toilet, and your garbage is picked up, et cetera. So with that, we'll start through that. If you want, we can do it however you want. If you want to stop right in the middle of the presentation, or we can hold and let them get through it. I've asked staff to limit their presentation to 30 minutes, so that'll give us plenty of time for discussion afterwards.
Okay. First up is Chief Manley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Council, as all of you are aware, the last couple of years have been tight for everybody, and we all have been running a bare bones budget. So, like Chief Anderson said, this is what we're proposing for 2015, and I'll make it as brief as possible. We're going to start out with our personnel. Currently, we have 92 sworn members at the police department. The officer per 1,000 person ratio says there we're at 218. This was the 2010 census, and since then, we've gotten bigger in our city, so it's going to be a little lower. We went ahead and put some numbers up here so we can compare it to the other cities, that you can see what's around us. And as you see, Orlando, which is obviously a lot larger than us, are at 308, and Longwood's at 292. Winter Garden is at 201. And Winter Park is at 301. Ocoee is at 223. Altamont 243, and Maitland 304. The average around Central Florida is 2.75 per 1,000 person. And you can see that our number is at 218. So we're requesting 9 officers to be added to the Apopka Police Department at the base pay of $46,844. And the benefits package $27,383, which is a total of $668,000. Having done this, you'll see it won't put us at the average, but it'll put us closer to the average at 2.4 officers per 1,000. The other personnel that we're looking at getting is 2 crossing guards, and we're going to be able to go back and revisit this because this was going to be added to the 451, 441 interchange when Lake Doe's children were going to have to walk to Apopka Elementary, but we have since found out Orange County is going to bus them, so we're going to go back and revisit that.
For the year?
For next year, yes. Right. Next biggest thing that it impacts our police department, and this is every year, is our vehicle replacement program. Like I said earlier, we've been running bare bones budgets, and we've got by with what we could get by with. And our vehicles, we can put anywhere from 250 miles to 300 miles a night, a shift on them, because we patrol. Right now we have, you see here we have 120 vehicles in our fleet, include staff, patrol investigations, and special vehicles, such as the command truck, SRT, CPA, code enforcement, and we even have undercover vehicles that we don't publicize out here that we use for undercover techniques or surveillance. What we are requesting is 24 total vehicles for patrol and CID, which is a replacement cost of $696,500, which the vehicles we're wanting to replace are vehicles that have 100,000 miles or equivalent. And what I mean by equivalent are K9 vehicles may only have 60,000 miles on them, but we never turn them off. And all our vehicles are done by hours now with the garage, so it could have 150 or 60 hours on it, which could be equivalent to 150,000 miles, just because the engine runs so much. The average cost for equipment with the car, like the police interceptor, usually runs around $23,000. By the time you put equipment in, it's $29,000. So the average cost is around $29,000 with lights and siren, and all the other equipment that needs to go in the vehicles. We're asking for a crime scene van. We have an older crime scene van that it's way up in miles. What we are proposing to do is take this van and make it into a jail van, transport van, because it's like an F-350 van, and buy a smaller van for crime scene. Because right now certain cases or like the dog incident, we made 26 arrests. We had to drive, put 2 people, because depending on how large you are, 3 people in a car and drive to the jail, that many times to get them down there. So that's what we're proposing to do with this, and we don't need it all the time, so having a vehicle with 100,000 miles, we're not going to use it as much. So it'd be nice to have around there to get the prisoners transported. And we're a code enforcement vehicle, CNG truck. City is going to CNG, so we are getting one of them. The general capital equipment that we have is a live scan system. The one we have now, we've had since we started, and the life expectancy of that is coming to an end. You're all aware we do background checks on coaches and every employee in the city, so it's used a lot. And then with the concealed weapons permit that our citizens are coming to get, they come to get their live scan done. So we're doing a lot of background checks with that machine. The Power DMS is a policy maintenance and training software system to put our policies together, and so we can get to them and we can actually see who gets to them, and it has some training software in that. Code enforcement vehicle printers, there's 2 at 1250, 2500. SRT vests. SRT vests have to be replaced every 5 years. The manufacturer puts a 5-year warranty on it. So this is a reoccurring cost we got to do every 5 years. You're all aware that we joined forces with Winter Garden, Maitland, and Winter Park for SWAT services. And each city is trying to buy different high-priced equipment that we need, instead of each city having to buy one. So what we're proposing is to buy this tactical robot at $15,000, so we can get closer to incidents with the robot versus having a human get into that position. The thermal imager low light visibility system that we're requesting to purchase. And then the communication center hardware for new monitors, we're looking at 8 at $2,250 for $18,000. So total capital requests that we're asking for is $850,500, and total personnel requests are $682,700. We'll break down some of the, if you look at our budget, some of our numbers are up. Sorry, I'm getting older, so
don't apologize for that.
Can't see the small stuff. If you look at professional services, in some of these numbers, they look high, but it's not really that much money going towards it. Like this is $15,000 that we had last year. We're proposing $17,000 this year. But it's an increased municipal ordinance arrest, code enforcement actions. So our arrest last year for open container almost tripled, because we put our bike squad out here to clean up our downtown transient problem that we were having with alcohol. So the other contractual services is the red light cameras, and that's a projected estimation. I'll let Edward talk about that if we have any questions. Another one here, repair maintenance. It's just building repairs and general maintenance. Our building is very old. We moved in it in 1990. We got carpet and paint issues we need to redo, and some of our downstairs portion. Our upstairs is fine. We went up for the legal ads in code enforcement and property dispositions. That went up a little bit more because we have to advertise when we get abandoned property in evidence disposal. So we have to advertise that. So that's why we're up a little bit there. And then the 13.33% is fuel, which everyone knows fuel's going up. And that's from my office, from the field services, which is our patrol division. The travel and per diem is up, but the second dollar funding, which is the revenue sharing from traffic fines, continues to diminish. So more of the expense is placed on the city. And this is not just happening here, this is happening everywhere. The repair is the 70% for the repairs and maintenance. The reason that is up is repair and maintenance, rising costs to our tasers, repairing our tasers, copy machine maintenance, and our radars and lasers have to be calibrated. And then we added the speed monitoring and cameras to more of our vehicles, and that's an additional cost to calibrate and service these items. So that's why we're up there. And the increase for the general operation materials, the ballistic vest replacement, the ammunition, forensic supplies, and other items have all increased. So that's why we're up there. And then, of course, the fuel expense is there because fuel goes up. Support services, which are our criminal investigation division. The professional services went up because we do more pre-employment exams, psychologicals, and that's mainly for our SWAT team. Every SWAT team member that gets added on has to have a psychological exam done. The transcript services are up, but the state attorney has dumped some of the cost on us to get stuff transcribed and get it to them, so we've had to do that. The 4100 communication services, and this is all technology used by our detectives, software maintenance service, and cell phone service, and the licenses for some of that software. And then training is the same thing. The second dollar funding, just the revenue sharing from fines, continues to diminish. Our next section is crossing guards. We have no change there. And then communications on the professional services, again, it's the pre-employment exams. Communication technicians now have to be certified, so we test them. We have a test procedure to get hired here, and we started doing the psychological exams for our communication technicians to make sure we get the best one. And then the 4600 is the Motorola service estimate. I don't know that number is going to be that, but it's just an estimate right now. And then the increase for the general operating materials is uniform and non-assessment equipment such as a jacket or something, because we keep it cold in there, so we're trying to help them out with that. And then training is up in communication. And pretty much that's the highlight. I know I did it pretty quick. For the police department, that's what we're proposing.
Thank you, Chief.
To do.
Any questions by the council?
Are we able to pass on our costs, like in communications? Are we able to pass it on to the other cities? Or do we have an annual contract with them? Or
we have an annual contract with them.
We have annual contracts with Maitland, Eatonville, and Ocoee. Those have a 5.5% increase included in those.
I got you.
I think we're on the last year of Ocoee's, and Maitland expires next year. The only one we really lose money on is Eatonville.
I'm sorry?
Eatonville. As you recall, we got into that. The sheriff's office abandoned them several years ago, and we were being magnanimous and got in there and helped them out a little bit. There's not that much of a load on us. It's not an exorbitant amount, but it doesn't pay for itself. So most of those are offsets.
Yeah.
Very good.
Any questions? Any further questions? Chief, just how do you feel generally about where we are in terms of response times and with the growth that you see coming in the city? How do we make sure that we maintain the service level that our citizens will be comfortable with? And that's a general open-ended question, I know, but not specific. But.
Yeah. Our response times, we have a great department. And we, here in the last year, I know crime is up a little bit for us, but if you look at the arrests, we're responding quickly to calls. We're getting there. But as the city gets bigger and we get spread out, which we're kind of getting spread out now, we're going to have to make some adjustments of getting some people to get, so we can make sure we keep them response times as we grow. So, I mean, it's...
Chief, add a little bit on the technology side. Let me explain what we're doing there. We have invested in some new technology, software technology, that's going to allow us to actually dispatch the closest officer. Now, with our communications equipment, we can actually see on the screen where the officer is, not the car, the officer. So with that, the new technology that we've got, that we're putting in place this year, we'll be able to dispatch the closest officer. So that helps in their response time. So we're trying to put the technology in there to offset the manpower costs. Naturally, it's cheaper to invest in the technology than it is the manpower. But at some point in time, as we grow, we're still going to have to have the warm bodies on the street out there to make that offset. But with the new technology changes, I think we're going to see some tremendous enhancements there. We're also doing some different things in surveillance that I think will really, you'll see our arrests go up significantly with some of that technology too.
One other point that struck me, you brought up minority hiring in a couple of cases. I want you to, I don't know if you're aware that the most recent hire at the Apopka Police Department is an African-American officer who just joined the department 2 weeks ago. We swore him in.
2 weeks, it was 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago. So anyway, and he
Barry
was on
Brown.
duty today as everybody walked in. Right.
Thank you.
And I know that the chief is also actively recruiting minority candidates for vacancies. And so I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
And the other thing that I should have addressed during the city council meeting, which I forgot to address, was last night was National Night Out. And the Apopka Police Department and Fire Department participated in a really wonderful event at Pines of Wekiva. And there must have been at least 300 or 400 people that passed through there.
Correct.
And they got free hamburgers, free hot dogs, pizza. The police auxiliary was there. Linda was there. Steve was there. Looking to see if anyone else in the audience was there. Randy was there. So anyway, it was a really great event. And this is the first time that the City of Apopka Police Department and Fire Department have participated in National Night Out. It was a really wonderful event. Every kid out there just could not have been happier with their hat that they got. And we also have a really cute remote-controlled police vehicle that squirts unsuspecting passersby. I got squirted. So anyway, I just want to thank the chief and everybody with the police department and fire department who participated in that. So.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Next up is the fire department.
While he's getting this hooked up, thank you, Mayor and Council. My presentation is going to be a little bit different than Chief Manley's. I'm actually going to show you the budget worksheets and what that we've asked for in detail. And we'll go from item by item. The three main divisions are the fire chief's office is 2110, and 2120 is suppression, and 2130 is EMS. And this is the actual worksheet that we've asked to fill out for personal request and capital improvements. And this is for 2110 with the chief's office. And as you see there, I can blow it up a little bit more. The only thing that we've asked for any kind of capital there, the description is in the 6300 line for new carpeting for the fire administration area and offices. That carpeting in there is right at 20 years old or older. We budgeted $8,000 for that. The second line, if you look under the budget details, it'll tell you about the proficiency and certification of incidents of incentives. And that hasn't changed from last year, which is $24,000 that you're seeing there. There is no change there. With some of the special pay, there's no change for incentive pay for education, training, and certification. It's $2,600, which was no change if you look in the right-hand column for percentage of change. Legal services remains the same at $20,000. As far as travel and per diem for the chief's office, there is nothing budgeted for that. In the budget detail request for communication services, that pretty much is stayed the same too, with no increase in that. For cell phones and pagers for staff, and phone and cable, postage, FedEx, and UPS costs. As far as utility services goes, that's a little high, but actually it's down from what it was before in the 2013 budget, and it's at $90,000, and that is that monthly figure. But you see all the utility services are included in that, and that's water and power bills for the Gillum Center, the fire administration, station 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the tower at Harmon Road, and the traffic signal at Harmon Road. So that cost went down a little bit, as you see, from last year's budget, from $99,613 to $90,000. Repair and maintenance and buildings of equipment, we went up $1,000 on that, just because of the paper and weekly training books and tests that help cover the cost of communications monthly. And the copy machine that we don't receive any money from the paper companies, but we possibly renewed for the contract for those copiers for this year, and it's $2,600. Vehicle maintenance, it relatively stayed the same. It's right at $5,000, and this is for the fire chief's office. You'll see some additional costs associated with the 20 line and the 2130. In those areas. Printing service, it's $100. It hadn't changed since last year, so there's no increase there. We're still in the fire chief's office for office supplies. We're still basically the same there. We're staying the same level with the office supplies and the operating supplies. With $5,000 in the office supplies and $4,000 in the operating supplies. We had a little problem with this afternoon, so IT had been working on it for, 4.5 hours, I guess. So tell me if you can read or can't read this. Still, we're in the fire chief's office for fuel and gasoline. These are just for staff vehicles. It's $6,000. That hadn't changed. For our staff training, for books and publications, renewals for membership in the Central Florida Fire Chiefs Association, NFPA, and other associations that some of the staff and I are members of. In the budget fiscal year for the 2015, you can see, and I'll just point out what the bottom line is for the total budget, and that's the bottom line that you see at the bottom for the total budget, and that's 4.97% increase. That's in the fire chief's office. We're going to get into suppression. This is going to be a little more in depth with what we're asking for, and I'll start with that in the 6,200 line that we're asking for Station 5, and the cost of that station is $650,000. We had put $250,000 in for acquisition, for buying some land if we needed property, but we do have property to put that station, and I think you got some insight from last week from the CAO where that station was going. And it'll be in the area of Rock Springs Ridge, up off of Jason Dwelling. To staff that facility, we're looking for 15 firefighters for full manning at $1,100,000. The equipment machinery also would be included. The stuff that you see in red is associated with Station 5 in this 2120 line item for suppression. The heavy rescue, we've got a rescue truck that's 20-year-old vehicle. I know that the mayor taking the tour through the station when he first came and looked at that vehicle and asked us how old it was. That vehicle is 20-plus years old, but you can see that our people do take pride in our equipment and how clean it was and how we try to keep it up. But it's seen better days, so we're looking at $600,000 to replace that vehicle. Engine 5 pumper for Station 5 is $500,000. The TNT extraction equipment for Engine 5, $16,000. So, and we're looking to replace 2 F-150s, district chiefs and the training chiefs. They're 2006 vehicles and 2007 vehicles in excess of 70,000 miles. The maintenance on that vehicle with the district chief is rising. That's why you see that the deputy chief put in there ASAP, needed ASAP. But the cost on those vehicles will be $33,000 each. SCBAs, or self-contained breathing apparatus bottles, we're looking for 28 of those to begin replacement program for the soon-to-be expiring inventory for 115 units in 4 years. Bunker gear, we're looking at 6 sets needed for the new personnel and employees at $12,000. Portable extinguisher training prop for PR events. There's a lot of new requests for those. That particular type of PR tool was necessary for individuals to go out and train individuals safely under controlled conditions instead of taking our half barrel out there, putting liquid fluid in it, and having to extinguish a liquid fire. The cost of that is $9,300. To replace Freddie, the fire truck, I know that you were talking about the vehicle that PD had last night at their PR event. Freddie, we use him for birthday parties. He's 15 years old. He's no more. We can't repair him. We don't have the parts. You can't get the parts for him. So that's a total of $10,500. Class A foam for normal operations is $6,000. Class B foam for normal operations is $6,000. And we asked for a hazmat shower to complement the existing operations, and that hazmat shower is just an upgrade of the portion of decontamination for that hazmat shower. So we're asking to not replace it, but as an addition to. That's $3,000. The pumper pitot calibration kits needed periodically to calibrate the pumper fire flow meters. That's $5,000. And 4 iPads for fire users, and provided an additional iPads for the fire app users. We put in $2,800 for that. Really, nothing on this page on these line items has changed except for a training center monitoring system, and that's just an annual fee that it costs to monitor the training system center for burglary and fire. Verizon Wireless iPad under the Communication Service Division under 2120. The cost for that service is $15,000. It hadn't increased since last year, so it stays the same. Freight charges stay basically the same, $3,000. Training center natural gas that we use to train out at the training center is around $1,200. That hadn't changed. For some of the repair and maintenance and building equipment, it's pretty much stayed the same as it was last year. That's for air compressor maintenance, fire extinguisher research, small engine repair, SCBA annual research, and bunker gear repair. tower and ladder and annual research for those, miscellaneous station repairs, and some of those repairs are needed repairs, especially at Station 1. So we've got $8,000 in for that. Miscellaneous fire equipment, $3,000 we put in for there. Preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance, under vehicle maintenance, that basically remains the same at $74,635. Again, let me know if y'all are having trouble seeing this.
Yeah.
Operating supplies, some of the requests here will go hand in hand with the new station and the new pumper, but we're looking at $6,000 for hand tools, $1,500 for batteries, PR and educational material, $4,500. Work uniforms are $19,000, and volunteer uniforms run about $3,000. And uniform boots, $7,000. Bunker boots, $7,000. Firefighters gloves, $3,500. SCBA mask, $8,000. And personal protection equipment miscellaneous, $2,500. Helmets, $2,500. And tech rescue equipment, $5,000. Guardian test equipment, test kits for some of our equipment that have to be tested periodically. We're looking at $1,500 for that. Nozzles and hoses, that's going right along with part of that engine that we're putting in service out at Station 5 if approved. And there we're looking at $10,000. Cleaning supplies, $5,000. Honor Guard uniform equipment, $3,000. And uniform accessories, $3,000. We're still in the 2120 for fire suppression. Fuel and gas. Fuel costs haven't changed. Figure out they're going to be about the same, $48,000. Books and publications, the 5400 line. Looking at promotional testing material, that's $3,000. In the 5500 line for training, educational reimbursement, $5,000. Instructor fee and props, $5,000. That pretty much hasn't changed. Any of those items haven't changed. The bottom line for the total budget request for those, and you got to keep in mind this is the fire station, the fire truck, so that's gone up to 77.41%. Now we're getting into the EMS line, 2130. You're going to see here that we're asking for in the line 1200 line for regular salary and wages. There's 3 paramedic positions for the new medics eligible for paramedic pay at $8,000 each for incentive, and those 3 are currently in paramedic school, and 1 has just graduated, so as a medic. So we budgeted $24,000 for the incentive pay for there, and the 3 paramedic positions that would be needed for out at Station 5, we've budgeted $8,000 each for those medics, which comes to $24,000. We're looking at replacing 2000 model under the 6400 line for ambulance 41. It's 2002. We're looking at $150,000 for replacement costs there. Replacement cost for ambulance 21, which is 2003 model, $150,000 for there, that particular vehicle. And Striker Power lift stretcher, $10,000 to accompany one of the replacement ambulances here. And so, the same thing with the Striker chair that you see there under the 6400 line item. One of the big costs that we have here too, that you're going to see when we come to the final budget and how the EMS line has increased, is our life packs. We're asking for 12 of them. We've currently got a grant that we've applied for. We haven't been denied yet, but we haven't been accepted yet. So we're waiting on that call any day. They have awarded some, and looking online, they have denied some, so I hope we're still in the hunt. They're 13 to 14 years old and continuous need of repair and maintenance, and the cost of those is $360,000. If we get the grant and we get awarded the grant, then we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 grand, is that right? 40 grand on our behalf. The only thing that's increased in this particular line is traveling per diem. Our EMS chief is asked to attend, they're almost required, but not actually, but they 2 times a year they have EMS state meetings, and he liked to attend those, so we budgeted additional $600 for that. Under the 4100 line item, we're looking at ambulance cell phone use is $4,000 a year. Ambulance iPad data service is $6,564. Ambulance iPad maintenance fee for the MOS 360 application that we currently use that IT suggests, and that's $735. Miscellaneous emergency equipment rental is $8,000. And under the 4600 line, the yearly PM on all the heart monitors, miscellaneous equipment, it'll be less if we get the new monitors, but we put the $20,000 in there because that's what it's currently, that's what it had been run, that's what was run last year. So we put the $20,000 back in there. Preventative and corrective for maintenance, that hasn't changed. We're looking at $35,000 for that. EMS reporting forms, HIPAA forms, and patient refusal forms of $4,000 in that line item, $4,700, and that pretty much hasn't changed. That's stayed 0% increase. Under office supplies, for ink and paper, notebooks, it's such, we're looking at $600. I'll back up to the total EMS bill expenses, that $46,000 that you see there, and the 4950 line is for the billing agency that we hire, and they get 6% of what they get from the ambulance billing. In the 5200 line item, EMS operating supplies and medications, and there's been a substantial increase in the cost of the EMS medications, supplies, and additional medications added to the EMS protocol. So we've raised that from $105,000 to $115,000 in the operating supplies.
Chief, before you go to the next page, Commissioner Aerosmith is going to have to leave because he has a prior commitment. And I just, before he leaves, I wanted to kind of put one thought out there so he has the benefit of at least hearing it. Just from a policy perspective, one of the things that I want the City Council to be aware of that we need to address is, we have our fire department is rated ISO Class 1, which we've all kind of said is a point of pride for the community. And here's the policy issue that we're going to have to be addressed with is that going to remain a kind of signature priority for the city of Apopka? Because as the chief has explained to me and as Richard has explained to me, first of all, ISO is changing its kind of rating criteria, making it a little bit more difficult for communities to reach ISO Class 1. And we've got a growing city, and so we have to kind of plan and make sure that we provide for that. And so the discussion at the council level is going to be, do we want this to remain a signature priority? And I think that that is something that we can discuss later. But and I do appreciate the detail that the chief is going into, because I think while we may not necessarily get every detail, all of it kind of helps inform our discussion. So, and with that, I'll let Commissioner Aerosmith go to his next priority.
I appreciate it.
All right.
And the answer to that is yes.
There you go.
And it is a priority for us too, that Station 5 will help in that. And as far as the ISO goes, we were going to expand on that a little bit at the end of this presentation.
I wanted to put that out there before he left, so at least he has.
Chief Tyer has had a couple of workshops with ISO, and I'm going to let him come in and at the end of this, and we'll discuss a little bit about ISO.
Right.
But that truly is important to us. The need for that Station 5 is definitely important for us, and the residents up in that area, and the growth that's up in that area, and all the annexations that have happened up in that area. So there is growth in that north of the current Station 2 that's there, and a lot of development that's planned. So we need to keep up with that, and that's one of the reasons that we're going to push hard for the Station 5. And it will, yes, sir. It won't be a full Band-Aid for the ISO requirements, but it'll certainly lend us a long way to keep that rating. For the fuel and gasoline for the 5200 line item in EMS is 40 grand. We bumped that up a little bit because we are running a little more calls, so we did increase that a little bit. In the 5500 line for training, BLS and ACLS recertifications, and for the new American Heart Association guidelines and updates, we've asked for $10,000. We haven't increased that, so that's pretty much stayed the same. The bottom line for the total increase for that for EMS division 2130, and if I can barely read it here, it's 28.64 as far as what I'm looking at. As far as the fire department emergency call data, we did the 2013 totals for the total emergency calls that we had. 5,825 calls for emergency, 4,483 emergency medical calls, and 1,342 fire-related calls. From 2014 to date is 3,689 calls for total emergency calls, 2,832 for emergency medical calls, and 857 calls. That's from January to date.
Is that how was that trending compared to last year?
There's a little increase there for calls just because of the number of residents that we have now. You're going to see that it is going to go up a little more than what's here, but it currently runs around 6,000 runs a year. I think we'll probably hit that this year.
And are these calendar year numbers or fiscal year numbers?
These are from January 1st. January 1st.
Calendar year numbers. Okay.
Yes, sir, calendar. And we're going to go into some ISO Class 1. What does it mean? There's just a little brief overview. I'm going to let Chief Tyer do that. If y'all got any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer them before I leave here. So, does anybody have any questions?
What is the projected date for the new fire station to be built?
Well, if it gets approved, we hope to start on it right away. We have plans that already have been approved and drafted up, and there may have to be a little bit of modifications to those plans. But, I mean, we're kind of sitting on ready. We're just waiting for the funding to do that station. But hopefully, if it gets done this year, we can finish that probably in the middle of next year or a little, a few months after. But in the 2015. But, this year we're looking for the funding for that. So
Let me jump in here. Very compelling. The only issue is that we don't have the demand up there yet, so Station 5 is probably going to go in once you start seeing some building for the new Kelly Park Crossings DRI. Usually what we're trying to do there is get it in place just as they're beginning of building, we're starting to see some revenues from the development up there. So we've got some time on that particular purchase. As I pointed it out to you before, this is one of those items that it's best to do over a 2-year period. Do your capital improvement in one budget year where you're building your facility, putting your infrastructure in, and then just as it's completed, you start your new budget year and you can put your personnel in that. So you actually divide it over a 2-year period, and it's not hitting you as hard in one budget. But the reality is, right now, we're not going to have to do anything in that area until we're starting to see some of that develop at Kelly Park Crossings DRI.
And again, the CAO touched on that last meeting that we had. So he's right for those, personnel costs and stuff. There was some suggestion by the public for that too, but that is a consideration.
Okay. So at the very least, this is fair warning, right, Chief?
Well, like I said, he kind of primed y'all last week for those big, ticket items. So and kind of gave you a little history on that. So,
well, again, I appreciate this. I know this is more than the staff is accustomed to doing with the City Council, and so I appreciate the extra effort that the staff has gone through to put these presentations together, both Chief Bronson and Chief Manley. And again, I view this as kind of Budget 101 for the newly elected officials and for any interested member of the public who would like to participate. So thank you very much.
Well, and the rest of the reason I did the way I did, because I know the majority of y'all don't see what we get from the finance department over to us to fill out this budget.
At the bare minimum, we at least have a sense of feeling or sharing your pain. So.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Enough numbers, huh? I'm going to throw some fuzzy stuff up here and talk about ISO, and I know some of the new commissioners to kind of get you acquainted with what it's about and get you on the right track with us here. And what does it mean? The Insurance Service Office, ISO, established a public protection classification system for insurance companies. This system gives reliable, up-to-date information about communities' fire protection services. ISO collects information on municipal fire departments and fire protection efforts throughout the United States. In each of those communities, ISO analyzes relevant data using fire suppression rating schedule. This study looks at several key components, such as the city water supply system, the city's emergency communications center, 911, the fire department response times, fire station locations, fire department staffing, and fire department training. The public protection rating ranges from Class 10 to Class 1. Class 10 represents no fire protection services at all, to Class 1 representing the superior fire protection services that we have here in our city. This little graph here that shows you the Apopka Fire Department is 1 out of 9 fire departments in the state of Florida with a Class 1 designation. And the next slide here with the graph, out of 26,000 fire departments in the nation, the Apopka Fire Department is 1 of 60 with a Class 1 designation. Something to be proud of. One of the most significant benefits of the ISO Class 1 rating is its effect on fire losses. Statistical data on insurance losses show the importance of superior fire protection. The average city homeowner may have a savings of several $100s depending on the value of their home. Businesses within our city can see a possible savings of thousands on their insurance policies. The ISO Class 1 designation also helps attract new business to our city. The city investment in this program helps provide economic benefits to all our residents and business owners while improving and maintaining our superior fire protection services. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions about ISO? All right. Are we at the end?
That's it for this session. I assume y'all are ready.
Well, good. And again, let me reiterate that I really appreciate the extra effort that the staff has gone through to put these presentations together. It's, again, we're all here learning the new system and how the city puts things together. And like I said, going through those budget line items, if nothing else, allows us to see what you're going through kind of through your eyes, and that gives us a better appreciation of when we talk to the public about the priorities that the city faces. It allows us to speak from a more informed place. So anyway, I appreciate it.
As a council member, can we get copies of that stuff?
Sure. I think it's all available.
You will have these copies whenever we get into the budget process. All of those are the budget worksheets, so that will be compiled and given to you when we start that phase of it.
So I think what Richard is saying is that it might be easier if it's in one package rather than multiple distributed packages. Is that right? Okay.
Correct.
When do we expect to have that ready?
We're going to have those to you before the first budget session.
Okay. So we're going to we'll have another budget workshop on August the 20th, where we'll have the same kind of presentation roughly from Public Services and...
Let me tell you why I don't want to say this is it. This is not it. These are very premature numbers. We still have to work some of these. We've got insurance numbers we're still working on, beating up and getting some of those costs down. So these are going to change between now and when you actually start looking at the budget. In most cases, they're going to be going down.
Well, I fully understand the concept of it all going down, and I know the numbers aren't concrete. I just want to be able to digest the forms, digest the system, be able to incorporate, what we're being asked to do other than the day we do it.
Well, I think if you look at the CAFR is all roughly in the same structure as what we're dealing with now,
exact same
right?
structure that you're looking at here.
So in terms of structure, if you start with the CAFR, that's a place to start. And I think, in terms of the budgets that we're working with.
I've got the CAFR, but
Yeah, I know.
It's printed. I just was kind of wanting to gauge it with something because, I've also got last year's and the year before that. So just kind of getting an idea of how the city's growing in reference to how our departments are growing.
Right. Well, I'll just speak from my own perspective. From a layman's perspective, reading the CAFR, reading the budget, there are clearly people who do it with a level of expertise and experience, and they can look at this stuff and pull concepts out that it looks like magic how they do it, kind of. But I think just going through the CAFR kind of over and over and over again and comparing one year to the next is going to give you a sense of the patterns that will, help you make judgments. And I think, I've sat down with a couple accounting professionals kind of in a CAFR 101 kind of session, and that was beneficial to me. And maybe at some point we can do CAFR 101 just like we've done Budget 101. How's that? All right. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I'm just kind of getting an idea with that. The strategic plan of how the city's going to grow and where it's going to grow at is important to help balance a lot of this out.
Absolutely. And I think, we're going to talk about, when we talk about public services and community development, that's, at least I know I want to talk about strategic planning and community visioning as part of that effort.
They go together.
There you go. All right. Any other comments from the council?
When is the next budget? It's
August,
the 20th?
Well, August the 20th, that's the night of our next meeting.
That's the night. And
we're going to start at 5:15.
Okay.
And go for, hopefully, enough time to have a budget workshop, allow people to get something to eat, and then start the council meeting at 8 o'clock. Okay?
And the next one is public
services. Community development.
And the other one, the rest of them are going to be small, so there's not.
Right.
Those are the
Okay.
We want to get the
Yeah,
big
public,
departments
well,
first.
and we organized it the way that we organized it today because public safety is, one of the city's top priorities. And so this is the most, public safety is the most important thing that cities do, right? So we organize it.
I appreciate it, thank you.
But let's do public services in enterprise fund next meeting.
Okay, public services and enterprises.
All right. Is there any member of the public who'd like to contribute to this discussion? Sue Kidd.
Suzanne Kidd, 1260 Lexington Parkway. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm not really expecting a direct answer to anything that I'm going to say, and I'm probably not going to make myself a very popular person with some of the things that I am going to say. But I'll try to keep it brief. We met last week.
You got 4 minutes, Sue.
Okay. We met last week and went over a lot of different budget priorities that people were hoping to add into this year's budget. And I believe a figure of somewhere close to $10 million was a figure that was stated that if we fulfilled all those requests, we'd be that much over budget. So obviously, the best use of our money is something that we all need to be concerned about. Last week, a lot of stories came out on Channel 9 about some really disturbing practices, I think, that have been happening with regard to Apopka's finances. Things like secret severance pay contracts that were issued prior to Mayor Land leaving. Things like double dipping among a lot of our upper staff members, those who've been here for a long time. And I'm not trying to say that there's anything that is wrong with that. It's obviously a legal thing that can be done. But I guess my question is it something that we absolutely have to keep doing? There's a lot of money that's going out to people who are earning salaries and earning pensions at the same time. And I'm not sure that that's the best practice to have for us, at least not going forward. In other positions, it's basically saying that other people in those departments are not capable of stepping forward and doing the job when one person leaves, so that we have to bring them back once they start getting a pension. I'm not sure that that's the best way for the city to continue to go. So I guess my point is that I'm hoping that since salaries constitute over 50 or at least 50% of the budget, that that's something that really gets looked at, and we take a look and see, is there any way that we can get efficiencies out of that? After all, if the citizens are looking for improvements in terms of amenities like a community pool, a splash pad or whatever that thing is called, maybe some of the money that's being diverted off into these other excessive pay contracts can really be redirected toward things that are going to improve the whole city's quality of life. So I think that was something that needed to be said in view of all of those reports that came out this past week. And I thought this was an appropriate forum to bring it up in, since budget is being discussed for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Is there anyone else? Christine.
Christine Moore, I'm here in my capacity as Orange County Public School Board member, but it's 2145 Palmcrest Drive, Apopka, 32712. First, I just had an announcement that I wanted to make all of you aware, and I have some flyers here today. We are doing a sneak peek, which is in essence open house for the new rebuilt Phyllis Wheatley this coming Monday, August 11th at 5 to 7 p.m. And I would certainly love to have any of you come. I realize the school is not sitting in the city, but certainly they claim you as your leaders and really believe and look up to you. So it would mean a lot if you had the opportunity to come down. With all the heightened security around schools, there are not always a lot of opportunities for the public to come in and see a facility, and we don't allow that when the children are there. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. One other item, I hate to bring it up in terms of, I know the budget is so tight, but it's very time sensitive. As you know, the district is in the process of rebuilding Apopka Elementary at the corner of Vic Road and Old Dixie, and of course the city owns, has the right-of-way to that entire corner. And I just wanted to start some dialogue, if you have any interest, about, a signage there. I was allowed to come today and make an offer to you that we could run power out to the road to that point, and then over the long term, the school district would be willing to pay the power bill if you had a monument or a sign at that corner, welcome to Apopka. It is time sensitive because the construction process is actually, we have a notice to proceed in this August, and it goes up through November of 2015. So that will cross 2 of your budget years. I had a cost estimator look at a potential cost for you to run your wire from where we would take it out as far as the driveway, and then once it got into your property, they estimated that just the power at that point would be about $15,000. And of course, a monument could be built another subsequent year. It could be any style because it's your property. But I just wanted to make that offer to you today because it is time sensitive. In order for us to do that, we could even do the construction for you while we're there with our Wellville Construction Company from August of this year to November of 2015. So that's what I wanted to bring up for your budget here.
All right. Thank you, Christine. All right. We'll put it in the hopper. Dr. Shackelford.
Ray Shackelford, 2082 Carpethania Drive. I had the opportunity to look at the audit from last year, and I was very pleased to see that the city is reducing its debt. It reduces debt by $2 million. I think that's progress. I also like to point out, too, based on my limited understanding of an audit report, if there's some concerns about salaries, if there are some concerns about new equipment, I would assume that the audit report would have shown that up. Based on my analysis of the audit report, I saw no identification or recognition that there was a problem with that. So as we go forward with this budgetary process, it is important that we all be on the same page. And I think what you're doing today is a step in the right direction. You're getting input from the citizens. You're also listening to the citizens. I think it's more important that you listen to the people of Apopka. And I applaud you for your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shackelford. All right. Anyone else? If not, nothing else from the staff. We'll stand adjourned for this evening. Thank you, everyone. Yes, sir. Take it up with the paymaster. Uh-oh.